This week on the Flatchat podcast, Chris takes the show onto the big stage as he misses the show's most successful driver interview to date, just to attend Broadway's hit show, Jersey Boys. Luckily, we were saved, however, by V8's Online work experience kid and All-Star Motorsports driver, commentary intern, Brock Caddaye. Brock, get over here. Another cappuccino. 2 sugars this time, don't step it up. Speaking of successful drivers, reigning V8 SCOPS champion JARRAD FILSELL joins the boys and deflates everyone's confidence as he discusses how he used development series car setups to win the 2015 SCOPS title. Also on the show, he is the Roland Dane of iRacing, the Roger Penske of SCOPS, the Ross Brawn of Sim Team Management. Join us for an evening with Mark Samuel, a sit-down with Redback Racing's Team Manager Extraordinaire. I'm Herbert Charles, and this is the Flatchat podcast, V8 SCOPS edition with Matt, Chris, and JC, and Brock, the work experience kid. The Flatchat podcast is sponsored by Trojan.
Let's get the season underway. VRS, V8 SCOPS.
Right in, there's more in contact. Wow, look at that.
Down the inside, drives contact. No, they touch. They're holding together though. Everybody goes. Filsell gets a storming start from the front row.
Oh, hang on a minute. Who is that?
Around the outside. Get the inside. Hold it down to the inside. He sends one. Tries to make it inside.
Rewind on the edge for the hairpin. Okay, goes up to the in the room and gets the position.
And g'day everyone, and welcome to the Flatchat podcast, SCOPS edition. My name is JC Richards. I'm filling in for our regular show host, Chris Kessey, who's, in the honour of current Australian political landscape, has decided to take the night off and mix up the Flatchat cabinet. He's gone to attend none other than a Broadway musical. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But our only concern here is how we're going to break this fantastic, fabulous news to his soon-to-be fiancée, Emily. FYI, Chris, the ticket prices for such lavish musicals can be quite high, so with the extra income you're earning from that head barista job at the hip new cafe Birkin and Brady, I reckon you'll pull through soon, mate.
This is V8 SCOPS.
The Flatchat podcast, V8 SCOPS edition.
Look, tonight, joined as always by Matthew Norris, who I'm really proud to say is not in attendance of any high-end camp sing-along. So, mate, Norrie, welcome back, and how you going?
It's bloody great to be here, mate. It's what we do best, and unfortunately, Kessey's decided to have the night off, so let's power through it.
We will, Norrie. We will power through it, and I do understand your concern. I share it. Kessey, I hope you're having an absolutely fabulous night, mate. Hashtag sarcastic. Now, Brock Caddaye is also here with us. He's going to help fill Kessey's shoes. He's All-Star Motorsport's young gun driver and V8's online commentator. Brock, mate, thanks so much for coming in and filling the spot. Let's have some fun. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, g'day guys, and hey everyone. It's some big shoes to fill. I can't say I'll be doing any singing along tonight, but I can certainly do some talking for you.
Oh, that's fine. That's all we require. We don't need any more singing.
Are you sure I can get my singing voice on?
Maybe.
We've got one camp host. We don't need another.
So, first of all, before we go on, I just want to say thanks for checking out last episode. We had Jay Kennedy and Ross Rizzo on. If you haven't checked it out, go ahead and do yourself a favour because those two guys are fantastic. First of all, there was Ross talking about his real rise to form in SCOPS and his real first go at the SCOPS season this year, and he's already sitting in the top 5. So, fantastic effort, and just such a great bloke too. Also, the other interview we had was with Jay Kennedy. He's the guy, obviously, you all know, runs the V8's Online. Big part behind the scenes at SCOPS and bringing SCOPS into the new frontier of the esports iRacing network, which is really important because you guys and drivers are out there getting so much more exposure because of that. And that's really, really good to see, especially with the new announcement this week of Jay, the one he's been holding on to, which is the integration with CAMS. So that's the Confederation of Australian Motorsport. And that's integrating esports into the real world by offering drivers a chance to get amongst it. And I think the prize for some of the events to have a test day, a full test day in a Formula 4, which is a pretty serious bit of kit. So, yeah, that's fantastic. Hope everyone's keeping their eyes and ears out for that. But tonight, Mark Samuel from Redback Racing's on. He's on a bit later, and that's an interesting chat. Talks about team management, a really, really intelligent bloke who's got this team, Redback Racing, from where they were about a year ago, a bit of a backmarket team, to, at this point in time, fighting for positions in top tier of SCOPS, which is fantastic, with not just one, but a couple of drivers. He's on later. Please check him out. It's a real good interview to listen to. Heaps of interesting information from Mark. Also, before that, we have the one and only enigmatic JARRAD FILSELL is on the program. So, really looking forward to that one, boys.
It's going to be a great chat. Hopefully he's going to teach us how to be fast, or at least we can steal some secrets from him.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those aliens out there, so I'd like to know what his secret is, and maybe I can take a few of those tips out and, get a little bit further up the grid, or otherwise, I think we're in for an interesting chat. He's gone through a few different bits and pieces in his career, and like you said, up the top of SCOPS, so right now he's the man to beat.
Yeah, he sure is. He is the man to beat. I mean, he's leading the championship. He's defending champ from last year, won in 2015. I'm definitely interested to hear what he has to say about his how he approaches sim racing and how he feels about it. He's obviously kind of the best of the best at the moment in our car, in our field of SCOPS, and just to get an insight into who is JARRAD FILSELL, without sounding cheesy. That's really excited to find out. But
I think he's JARRAD FILSELL.
Thanks, Norrie.
Sure.
Did we say, Brock, that we have a saying of thanks, Norrie, that's why we write the jokes, but it's okay.
It's all right. He'll improve one day. It's fine. One day.
I appreciate the faith.
Brock, Norrie's tried his hand quite a few times at a few commentary gigs over at Wheelie Bins. Yourself, mate, Brock, you've been doing a few gigs here and there. I mean, you just jumped into the booth tonight straight out of the Geodesic race, mate.
Yeah, it's great. The commentary team there is really awesome. So no matter who you get put with on any given night, whether it's I commentate at the moment the Geodesic Racing Series and the Porsche Supercup Australia Series, and either way, I usually commentate with Reese, but tonight I was with Bo, and the team over there at V8's Online is really solid. And no matter who you're with, it's always a great commentary experience. We had David Haynes in the box tonight as well. So yeah, it's with three guys in there, you can really keep the chat going, and there's also a bit of good banter along the way as well, which is what I think V8's Online really stand up for. Is they love bringing quality content to their viewers, but also having that a bit more of a relaxed vibe at times about the way you go about your commentary. So no, it's really good fun, and something a bit different to do when you're not have the hands on the steering wheel and doing lap after lap. Yeah, sure, and I think your point about being a bit more relaxed and having some bants and everything definitely came to a point for me when the AOSC race at Spa that was broadcast was bloody 4 hours long. I remember one broadcast watching, and forgive me, Kessey, but not that I watch Test cricket. I can't stand it, to be honest, but I remember putting it on. And Richie Benno and Tony Gregg discussing the different coats and the colours of the seagulls that are sitting on the pitch. And I was like, are you kidding? So the 4-hour race at Spa, and Jay Kennedy and the commentary team trying to get some content in there, mate, it's not as easy as it looks, I'm sure. Yeah, well, that's it, particularly in those longer endurance events. I've been fairly lucky with doing some of the sprint events, but yeah, you get into those endurance events when you've got really big chunks. The Le Mans 24 Hours is a great example of that. Obviously, you don't have racing going on every minute of the race, and if you do, you've gotten very lucky. So yeah, it's important to throw a few things in there, have a chat, look at the weather of the day, and enjoy the time while you're up there in the box. It's not something to be scared of. It's something to really take advantage of, and enjoy just having a chat with your co-commentator as well at times. About the track itself. No matter what track you go to, there's always so much history embedded in it, and they all have different turns and different cars and that sort of thing. There's so much you can talk about when the action isn't going on out on track. So yeah, it's kind of cool if you know how to fill in a spot. You can make a conversation go for easily 20 minutes if nothing's going on out on track, and just pick the small moments that are going on. So it's great. I got to give a shout out to RRTV back when they were around. They gave me a bit of a start up into the commentary gig, and I did some rallycross commentary with Bernie back then. and that's how Jay came about and saw me doing my commentary things. So that was really cool back then. And obviously RRTV aren't around any longer, which is sad to see. But Bernie's a good lad and definitely gave me the start I really wanted to be able to keep commentating on iRacing.
Yeah, sure. Well, the mantle has been taken up, obviously, by the V8s Online, so it is still there in spirit, I guess, Bernie's work. ROTV was obviously fantastic for AOSC, and, well, I mean, mate, you got a chance to rock your stuff on there, and obviously you're still going too, so, you know, whatever's going on over there, as long as the spirit of the thing continues. But, hey, Norrie, by the way, are you taking notes, or are you happy with...
I'm always taking notes. I'm serious. I spend a lot of the time, like, I don't, like, Wheelie Bins isn't sort of the biggest market, obviously, but...
Oh, they're still fantastic, though. We love, I think Wheelie Bins are a much loved staple, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's a close-knit community where you sort of jump in there with your mates, and it's great fun. And I always go and watch, you know, V8 SCOPS. I watch the Reese Gardner, the Jake Sperry. I watch like Rock and all these other guys that they do such a good job, and it's like, well, sure, I do it on my own small scale. It'd be great to be there one day, but you got to start somewhere, and I guess putting your voice to it, like Brock says, you got to come up with a narrative sort of thing to what is presented in front of you. And sometimes it's just about talking about the weather of the day, because the on-track action, the leader runs away from the pack, and it creates a bit of something that isn't really that inspiring to watch, but you're going to go and trawl through the pack and find something to watch and create a narrative and throw a few drivers' curses out there and try and mix it up a bit.
Well, Norrie, going back to your point about that you do try to get on to watch the SCOPS races, seeing as you're a co-host of a SCOPS podcast, I bloody hope you do watch the races, mate. And two, that is a good point about the narrative and finding the storyline in a race. When you guys do commentary, it's awesome. And it's also really entertaining. It's not just about calling the crazy action on lap one, like there's a whole race ahead of it. So I guess we try and find the narrative at the podcast here, the narrative of the previous races or the season at hand. And I think that's a good segue into what we have coming up next, which is a very special guest. He's actually waiting in the green room, waiting to come in. And the narrative we have here at most shows for the SCOPS edition of the Flatchat podcast involves this gentleman, because he's usually winning. So we'd love to hear, pick his brain a bit and just sit down and basically get a gist of what he's all about. So let's get this one going. That's right, Herbert. Thank you for queuing up that 1980s super power synthwave music, because like I said, it is a special one, folks. It's time to bring in our first guest, and this time we have gone right to the top. Now, to be fair, this man really doesn't need an introduction, but I think I do like the sound of my own voice a little too much not to embellish him with this one. He has undoubtedly mastered one of the, if not the hardest vehicle in iRacing, and he does have the accolades to prove it too. You may remember him from such movies as Battle at the Glen, starring Jarrad and the Scarlet Pimpernel. You may have seen him round at such places as the top step of most podiums. He's making his claim to be the GOAT of Australian sim racing. Without further ado, it is the reigning, the defending SCOPS champion, Trans-Tasman Racing's very own, JARRAD FILSELL. So, JARRAD FILSELL, thanks so much for coming on the show, mate. We're really excited to have you on. We've been looking forward to this one. And I hope we can just have a bit of a relax. So, make yourself welcome. And first of all, how's it going?
Going very well, thank you. It's good to get amongst it in this little podcast environment.
Now, Jarrad, since you've joined iRacing back in 2012, you've sat on the top step of the podium with the V8 over 150 times. And we may or may not have paid V8 Supercar statman Aaron Noonan to break that figure down, but his abacus exploded after he found all the wins on your record. But you did mention that your journey started playing V8 Supercar games as a kid. So did you ever imagine that you'd be in this position you're at now as a virtual racing champion on what's recognised as the world's most kind of realistic platform?
No, definitely not. I vividly remember the days of PlayStation 2, and I think I had like one of those Mad Catz wheels where they have these little, I don't know what they would call it, little arms that slide down and it just sits on your leg so the wheel doesn't move at all. It was a real funky setup. But when I went to PS3, I didn't play any racing games at all other than, I think it was Grid. I can't remember what that, pretty sure it was Grid.
Grid was good.
Good game,
was
that.
really good.
That's a good game. About the only good sim game out, or sim, I should say. I couldn't get my head around Gran Turismo or anything like that, so I've got to say I'm pretty much in the same boat as you with the PS3 games.
Yeah, definitely. I remember Mum rolled up and emptied her pockets out one tax check and bought me a G27, and I think it was $550 back then. It was a steep purchase, and yeah, it didn't get a whole lot of use throughout the PS3 days. But I was pretty good at the old drift scene on Grid, so I pretty much thrashed that. That was pretty much the only game that I did play after those Supercars PS2 games, but no, it was definitely a lot of fun.
Sounds like you and Madison are a good pairing with your Mad Catz wheel and his skateboard setup that we heard about last week. I don't know if you've heard of Madison's resting the G27 on a skateboard.
I think I've seen a photo of it. It's pretty exclusive.
Highly sought after.
It's quite funny that you mentioned Grid, because that was another Codemasters platform after they finished up with the Supercar series, so keeps it within the family, I guess.
I think I bought number 2, but it was pretty shit, to be honest. I parked that game and the wheel for a long, long time. And then when I first joined iRacing in 2013, I think I'd had the wheel for 5 years and I'd only used it probably 6 months. So it had no work whatsoever. But when I finally got on iRacing, it definitely got a pounding, that's for sure. Excuse the...
So how old were you at this time when you were using the wheel? In other words, were you in driving, like real life driving age, or was this kind of teenage years?
I actually didn't get my P plates until I was 18, and so I started working. So I was racing competitively on iRacing before I'd even had my, per se, solo driver's license where I could go and do my own thing. I think it definitely helped because I brought a manual car in South Australia. You don't need a license for a manual. Definitely helped fast tracking that experience in learning and driving a manual daily.
Well, I guess, we could ask heaps of guys who race on iRacing, about what they did and how they started. And you're a little bit of an exception because of where you're at, like your station in iRacing, and not to blow smoke or anything, but you are really successful in the V8, which is really hard to drive. Even guys who have actually got real life racing careers try and drive that car, and they're like, seriously, this thing is fucking, it is a hard car to drive. So I'm wondering, how do you go from, driving and playing really gamey games and not even having a driver's license to then becoming adept at driving something like the iRacing V8?
Like, I don't know, I can remember it very, very clearly when I first joined iRacing. I think I rolled up at Lime Rock with the old FG01, driving that thing around. I'm like, this thing is a bucket of shit. Like, I could not keep it on the road. It was terrible. Like, it was the baseline back then when it didn't have the high rake caster gate crap, whatever was running back then. So the car was just a bucket of shit. But yeah, I'm not really sure, to be honest. I feel like I adapt really well to anything, really. Like, if I do other series, other cars, I feel like I can adapt pretty quick, learn them, and pretty much be on the pace fairly quickly. But yeah, definitely a hard car to master, that's for sure. It's takes some people maybe 2 years, I think, before you can really squeeze the lemon and get the most out of it.
Sweet Norrie, we're about 45% in, mate. We've got a bit to go.
I think I'm about 95%. But how much sort of did you sort of practice early on when jumping into iRacing, or was it just I'll turn up driving and, like you say, just adapt to your circumstances?
Yeah, I was rolling out with a Toshiba laptop on a phone book, so it was pretty bad.
Man of the match there.
It was Yeah, it was pretty terrible, to be honest. I think I'd get 30 frames a second by myself, but when I was in a race, it could be between 15 to 20. So it was, it was below average, that's for sure. But yeah, like I'd struggle to join races most of the time. Sometimes it would take like 4 minutes just to get in, and then I wouldn't have time to quali, or you didn't have to quali back then. You just did the servers by themselves. But before the warm-up, like I'd miss the grid sometimes because I just couldn't get in time, so I'd start from the pits, and it was just a nightmare. My rating took a big hit, that's for sure, when that was going down.
So a quick question for you, actually, while we're talking about iRacing and that sort of thing. What first drew you to the iRacing platform? Obviously, it's not something that a lot of people come across easily because you've got a lot of other games that sort of flood the market at the moment. So what attracted you to iRacing as opposed to other games that were out there at the time?
Yeah, I'll throw back to my PS3, Xbox 360 days. I was playing Call of Duty a lot, and I was really competitive in that, making videos and all that, like a noob. You look back on it now, but playing competitively on that, and then I'm not sure that the Forza scene did catch me. I did like that, and I was just playing with a controller, and it was okay. I did a few leagues on there, and was probably consistent there as well. But yeah, I think I do remember the first ever broadcast of iRacing I did watch, and it was one of V8's Online's finest moments, that's for sure.
So what was that broadcast? Was that a SCOPS broadcast?
It was the race where Madison went nowhere and got poleaxed by the whole field, basically, and where Scotty, McLaughlin and Richard Hampstead decided they'd play bumper cars all race. It was a good introduction.
Dodge some cars with those guys. Let's join.
Because McLaughlin was part of iRacing the V8 before he really made it into the real life supercar scene, wasn't he?
When he still had time on his hands.
Yeah, before the Jandal.
Yeah, definitely. He was part of ANZ Motorsports with Shane van Gisbrrgen and Justin Rougier and all that. And funny enough, I actually got picked up by them almost straight away as soon as I got in the V8. I remember my first ever OSR Dev Series race. I think I put it on the front row at Laguna. And then, funny enough, I was getting private messaged after that event and got picked up by Henry King, who now, I don't know I think he's racing with SSR now because ANZ have kind of died a little bit, unfortunately, since I left those guys.
Well, I guess it is starting to unravel a bit for me, hearing what your journey's been on that side of joining that team and those drivers. To put my comment in perspective, we've had your fellow TTR driver on, Jake Burton.
Scarlet Pimpernel.
And he was saying, we're asking him, hey, mate, for any guys out there who are just starting in the car, like, how do you recommend people go about getting faster? And his comment was, well, you just got to be around people who are really good. You really got to be around people who are better than you, and they'll kind of lift your game, and the competition's always brewing. This is before those two New Zealander supercar drivers were even on the scene, I think, in the Supercar series. But you kind of, I don't know, was it just luck, or you literally found yourself in the mix of some pretty fast guys, like an established as all hell at ANZ? Yeah,
I joined when it was really slowing down for those guys, when they started really hitting their straps in the real world. So they were constantly, they weren't on the sim as much anymore. So yeah, I did have some involvement with them, like racing, like fun racing and whatnot, but we rarely did do the serious Monday night stuff because I wasn't good enough back then. I remember I can't remember what the required iRating now is for the strength of field. I remember I missed out on my first ever top split race, and I needed 3,800 iRating. So that was when it was really, really competitive. So yeah, obviously it takes time to build up that amount of iRating. So the window with those guys was well and truly closed. I think they just jump on for fun now. They're not really into the serious stuff unless it's some team endurance events.
But you did go on to actually eventually win the 2015 championship with ANZ. So who was in the team at that point? Did you feel like you were kind of, I don't want to use the word carrying, but were you the one pushing that team forward to get those get those accolades?
It was short answer. It was only me.
Right. Okay. There you go. Because I wanted to piggyback that with how did it come about? Madison kind of like getting you to come over, but I guess it seems pretty logical.
Yeah. 2016. 2016 was the last year with ANZ. But yeah, basically 2015. So that whole year, I was Simon Black, who administers the series and whatnot, and also does the dev series sets. I actually ran them all season, those setups, and basically tweaked them up. So
what?
Norrie, did you?
They were still very, very close.
Hang on, let me just get my jaw and pick it off. What? Yeah,
I'll repeat
hell?
that for you, mate. Jarrad Filsell ran the dev series sets to win the 2015 SCOPS series. You taking notes, Norrie?
I can't even win a dev race with those sets.
I can't get into first split with those sets.
That's the line. The line's been drawn. Anyway, carry on.
I think the evolution of the car and the setups has definitely surpassed. Now, I don't think those sets would be up that good at the moment, but I think there's a change coming to the car soon, so they could well be quite decent soon.
Well, supposedly with iRacing making all these leaps and strides with rebuilding all the cars to their newest damage model, everything's going to get rebuilt, and I think the Ford and Holden weren't built on that platform or that detailed platform originally. So I think everything will need to get redone, and like you say, there could be an update coming which could really shake it up again.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting actually, just getting the geometry of the car back to somewhat realistic. I'd almost argue that they should just recycling bin all the data and start again, basically. The car is not very good, but even Shane and Scott say if you plug a real setup in it, the car's fine, but yeah, it's just that we run unrealistic setups to be fast. So yeah, that's just sim racing, unfortunately.
That's a really good point, Jarrad, because I feel like I can drive the car, and I've asked other people, like I can drive the car so it feels comfortable, but that kind of feeling is going to get me like a 208 around Bathurst. The 203s, you just like, mate, that. You're just not going to do that in a real car. That's my opinion now. It might change in the future with different information, but is that something that you find that you're driving kind of beyond a realistic limit?
I just think that simulators in general, they're pretty poor at replicating lap times no matter what. That's just, yeah. It'll be really hard to get it close, because if you take away the grip of the car to make it slower, then the car doesn't drive like it should, or it doesn't feel like it should. So, hypothetically, Scott and Shane are saying that the car doesn't have enough grip, but we're already lapping 5 seconds a lap quicker at tracks where they have. Do you know what I mean? So then it becomes like crazy unrealistic lap times. But I'm not too sure. I think the car could definitely be a lot better in certain ways. I think the tyre itself lets it down a little bit at the moment.
I think at the end of that, it becomes a race between the virtual and the real world, because, like, using an example, in 2013, I understand that Nissan did so much work getting the computer to work to design that car. They spent the next 2-3 seasons redesigning it to get it to work in the real world. So they can put the code in the sim so much as they like, but you're never going to get it to be comparable because it's still two different worlds.
Yeah, definitely. I think they possibly have conflicting data from different teams. So some of your lower teams, some of your premium teams, they probably have different philosophies on the way they set up a car and make it go fast. So mixing those two is probably a recipe for something disgusting. Which is what we have right now.
Yeah, you're right. The weight transfer is what I struggle to deal with that thing, with the car. The way that it, I don't know, it's maybe just the shocks or something. It just, Yeah, get lobbed from side to side sometimes. But not to go too deep into technical stuff, but I mean, seeing as you're here and we can have a bit of a pick of your brain, is there something that you found or maybe spoken to the guys like Scott and Shane about what they feel the area of the car, of how you can manipulate the car that is delving into the unrealistic side? Like, is there something that they can recognise, say you or Madison, can do with the car that they can see and go, oh mate, no, you're not going to be able to do that in our car? Is there something that you can pinpoint?
They're pretty secretive, obviously, because they're competitive and they're in different teams. But as far as I know, all the adjustments you can make on the car you can in the real world. But at the moment, we're on this shock deflection bandwagon where the car hops around, but it turns like a demon, and that's just the way it is. That's how it's fast. You could probably do that in real life, but you'll be off the road in 3 laps because your tyres will be on the carcass. So I'm not sure. I think what I did here is iRacing are limiting that adjustment, which will bring it more into line and make the car probably a little bit easier to drive. But in saying that, there'll be another loophole, I'm sure. It seems like the V8 is always a car that can be exploited no matter what. You don't see anyone running some hacks in GT3 or anything like that, or the Porsche or what. So, yeah.
If not, our community is pretty diverse, so we'll find a way.
And I don't think I've ever seen a V8 Supercar ride as low as what it does when you're at Le Mans or Monza or something like that. Speaking of that weight transfer, the way it moves from the rear to the front is just absolutely crazy. So, I mean, just focusing on the technical side of things, just quickly, a question I'm interested in is, are you looking forward to potential suspension update? But is there the fear in the back of your mind that it's just going to be a repeat of the last one and it's all just going to revert back to what it was for another year?
No, not really. I don't think it will, because the car will essentially be a lot softer in the rear end, and then we're going to have to figure out a way to make it turn more. But there's also, it's a double-edged sword, really. I mean, you can stiffen up the springs, but then that also kills your tyres. So there's a compromise there. Even now, with what we've got now, there is a compromise between having a car that's accurate and that turns well or whatnot. But I think it'll be good. Hopefully, it'll spice it up. Definitely.
Jared, speaking of a car that hops around a lot, I'm not sure if you're aware, but I'm sure that Brock knows about it, because a lot of guys are sending around a certain setup called the JARRAD FilSell special setup, especially for new drivers that are new to the system.
It's a nice trap to fall into, that one.
You could say, it's a bit of a hashtag troll the new guy with this setup. I don't know if you've come across it, mate. Have you seen it?
Yeah, that one. Yeah, that one's a doozy. I'm gonna have to remake another one come next physics change.
That might become good.
Yeah, I really like how it lifts both rear wheels off the ground when you're cornering. It's optimal.
Yeah, it reminds me of the old 90s Snoop Dogg songs where the guys are hitting switches. What's the phrase?
Airbags in the car, lowriders.
No, I mean, the technicalities that are in the car and what you guys... I mean, you've got a setup person. I mean, just to throw from that, we've Mark, who's on later on the show. He's we've been talking, and he's got a setup specialist, I guess you could call him, which is actually ex V8 Supercar driver Paul Radisic's brother, Chris, and he's used to working as a bit of an engineer for a lot of the V8 teams, and I think he's over in the US now, and he works for other racing categories as an engineer, and he helps those guys out. And I mean, I'm not divulging any secrets here. I mean, Mark's going to openly talk about it and the benefits they've got from it. But have you got someone that does that kind of stuff, or is it up to you guys as the drivers to do those setups?
Yeah, we usually come together as a team and run with some baseline. We do have Brock in the team. He purely does the dampers. So we send him some data. He'll send us the required adjustments to get it so the shocks are even or they're symmetrical in the way they work around the track. So the car's just, I don't know, it's equal in all four corners in the way it moves. But all the other adjustments, like your ride height, spring rate, cambers, all that stuff, that's all up to the driver, and whatnot, and whether they want this or they want that. So, yeah, so Brock's mainly just you could call him a damper engineer.
That makes sense.
So, to my next point, which is about the field of SCOPS at the moment and how it's all going. And last time on the show, Chris challenged the fact that the bloke in the field by the name of Ethan Griggold may be able to catch you in the standings by the end of the season. Is that something that might be a bit of a rivalry coming our way?
Anyone who's close to me is a rival because they're challenging me.
If you're lapping me, is that a rivalry?
By definition, I guess you could say that, yeah.
Yeah, Norrie, don't fluff around, mate.
I think my aim from here on in for the rest of the season is just have to finish in front of Madison and Ethan, and that's it. So that's the only goal, just finish in front.
Just let the points take care of themselves.
Yeah, correct.
Maybe it's a little bit different as a viewer and a fan of SCOPS compared to yourself as a driver, and not just a driver, but the position that you hold, your kind of position on track and where you are. You're leading the championship. You won last year. Maybe, I don't know if it's hard for yourself to separate yourself as a driver. He's obviously extremely competitive. Anyone's a rival. I mean, Madison's probably he's right up there with you too, as far as rivaling you for this particular championship. I guess it's just it's nice to see like a driver like Ethan, ERT. He's not with you guys. I mean, Rogers isn't in this series either, and he's obviously a really big part of a, I don't know, I guess a rivalry maybe, or you guys are pretty close on track when he's out there. Sometimes we talk amongst ourselves and go, oh, it's good to see like a really good race, because sometimes you have the ability to just take the lead and just kind of run away with it, which, I mean, all bloody credit to you, mate. But it's good to see exciting things go on too, like let's say the Glen with Jake, Like, how do you view this kind of stuff? Do you just basically want to get out there and do you want to run away with it, or do you enjoy the close quarters racing? Like, how does the competition of the whole thing feel to you?
Yeah, the battles are good fun. I do like them, especially with Rogers. We always seem to hit one another, but not punt each other off. It's good. We always have a really good battle. It's a shame that he's not racing this season, unfortunately, because he's got other commitments in the Pro Series and whatnot, and I completely understand why. It's just too much of a workload, really, to take on 3 series in a year. That's bonkers, but he's definitely got the capacity to do it, talent-wise, and driving. I mean, I'm sure if he was racing this year, I wouldn't have won as many as I have. But me personally, I really, really enjoy the lap time battles. So if I'm only a second in front of someone, I really enjoy those type of battles where we're just trading times, but still consistently within that same gap, because you're really driving as hard as you can to try and pull away. But it's just, it's so tight. I really enjoy those ones. They're really good fun.
So I guess speaking of Rogers and the battles you guys have, do you sort of, I guess, miss the rivalry? Because, like you said, we've seen in some soft races, strength of field races, I'd say, over the course of the last few months, when you guys come together, you do make contact, but it's really great, fair racing, and that's what we all love to see in the community. So do you miss having that rivalry in the V8 Supercar with him?
I could say no. But no, it is good fun. Competition is good fun. I mean, hey, Ethan's making a claim for it this year, which is brilliant. Haven't really raced him too much previously, so that's good that he's getting amongst it. Madison's always there. Jake's been there or thereabouts this year. Dane's had a few of his issues, but he's been up and about a little bit, so I think it's definitely getting better and better year on year. So the series in general is definitely looking really, really, really strong.
Well, that's the thing. Every round, it just seems that there's more and more people who are in that category. And when you think you finally made it and you can qualify in a certain position every race, there's 3 or 4 more people have joined, and they're trying to beat you for that thing. So like you say, the category is really at the peak of its powers, and and it's only going to get bigger with the rise of esports as it keeps going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've lost a few good drivers, maybe 15 good drivers back in the official series who have just either quit or gone and done real life things, which is no fault of their own. But I can't think of the names, but if they were still racing now, I mean, you're looking at a second between the 40 cars. I mean, you could argue that would come down by at least 0.3. So it'd be on another level, to be honest. It's, to think where those guys went and if they were still around, it would it'd be pretty bonkers, to be honest.
So on that topic, is in a nutshell, is this your station? Is this where you're going to see? I mean, obviously you've got a real life out there at the same time. Many things to think about in the real world. But I mean, is your goal to kind of sit on top of the pile for the next who knows how many years to come? Is this what you want to do, or have you got other things you want to go into? Like Rogers is trying the World Championship Series. Some drivers like your teammate Jake has tried his hand in real world racing. Like, what's your kind of future prospects look like?
To be honest, I don't know. I think I'm just going to wing it and see where I end up. I don't really have any ambitions to do real life racing at all. I'm in the process of building a house, so next year is when that's all due. So who knows? I mean, I might be forced, without my consent, that I won't be able to race much next year. So who knows, really? So we'll see.
There's room in those blueprints for a secret little room like the Batcave that's perfectly set up for some triple monitors and a seat.
Yeah, there already is a room teed off in the house for such things.
So Rogers has gone on to do his thing with the World Championship Series, and it's funny because we've got a lot of literally one of the top commentators from that series, Jake Sperry, who we all know and love. He's over here with V8 Online. There's a massive growth with Jay. He was on last show and he was talking about how they've joined up with the iRacing Esports Network, and SCOPS itself is quite fastly becoming regarded as, it's like almost on par with that championship, the World Championship Grand Prix series, as far as how much respect and credibility you guys have as drivers and the series as a whole, the way it's put together. Obviously, the V8 is a particular type of animal that requires a particular set of skills. Have you ever thought about going in and following Rogers' type of journey with the championship series with the winged F1 cars, or are you happy to stay stationed with the V8?
Nah, I'm happy to dump the wings and slicks. I'm not a big fan. Not a big fan of those. You touch and then you're dead, basically. The GT series this year hasn't gone very well for us. I think we blatantly chose a pretty shit box car, to be honest. So we haven't really done a whole lot in results. We've been on for a few good ones, but been punted off or just had really bad luck, which is unfortunate. But I think, the lesser downforce cars. I mean, the GTE car is probably the furthest I'll ever go in terms of a World Championship series. I don't think I'll entertain anything with wings and slicks at the moment.
So you sort of touched on before that you don't really have like real world sort of racing aspirations. Do you follow like real world motorsport, or like what particular series are you interested in?
Supercars, of course. I was out at the Bend last weekend, so that was a cool experience to just see him in real life at that track. I mean, it's an unbelievable facility. I think
$1 million on grass alone.
Oh, yeah, that is.
It's pretty green.
all for them just lob it off the road and tear it up.
I think Tander went over the track.
Oh, it's a fantastic facility. I've heard about it, and when I saw it on the Vision on TV, the way I think it was SVG on his kind of I don't know if it was a practice lap or one of the first days they were out there, and they're still trying to find the speed. Usually you see these guys, and even someone like yourself, when you see an onboard, smooth is key. Smooth is fast, but to see him, like as you say, lobbing it around some of those corners, like almost just throwing caution to the wind and just chucking it in and dealing with what's to come, like unexpected things happening and having to deal with it with the wheel, particularly lots of movements on the wheel, man, it gave a good representation of like what it's like to put those things on a limit. Because like I say, it usually looks smooth. Smooth is fast, but yeah, the bend definitely gave us a view of what it looks like when you're just chucking those things on the ragged edge. It was awesome.
Yeah, and I don't think the tyre was the appropriate choice that weekend. But also the track is really in its infancy. It's not even a year old yet, so it's got all crap all over the track. So the more meetings which are there, the better. Obviously the grass or the weeds per se have grown a little bit. So the more that works out, the better it'll be. No doubt next year's event will be, I'm sure it'll be much, much better in terms of the track and getting dirty and whatnot. Should be definitely better in 12 months' time.
I guess it's like any new event, say Newcastle at the end of 17 or even Bell Island in virtual racing. There are always teething issues and it's going to take some time, but it'll get there eventually.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, who would have thought to put a wall on a straight that juts out? I mean, hey, I don't.
That's controversial.
Yeah, who knows?
Now that is a topical issue right there.
Well, the sissies over in Formula One of riding with the halo. Yeah, you put a wall on it in the middle of a track. It's fantastic.
I don't think that wall saved anyone's life.
I think we need to get Jared on for a V8 Supercars podcast. We could have some good conversations.
Do you root for a particular driver or team? I mean, considering you used to drive with some of those blokes, is there someone that you hold close to your heart?
Yeah, I do barrack for Shane and Scott. I mean, if any one of them get up, they're all cool, but I think Shane, more or less, in a way, he's a bit of a mentor on the sim, because obviously I came over from PS3 and Xbox with Call of Duty and whatnot, and you're just constantly talking shit when you're just playing. So I'm rolling up on the sim, just trying to have a conversation with them the whole time while I'm driving. And they're just telling me to shut up, basically. But yeah, I do remember he said, I can't remember exactly what he said, but it kind of stuck with me. And I'd still do it to this day. He goes, if you just concentrate on what you're doing, you could be the next Gregor Hooter.
Well, it's pretty telling. So from that moment on, you heeded his words pretty straight, I guess.
It's pretty self-explanatory. If I'm trying to have a conversation with you while trying to race, my mind's elsewhere.
Oh, hold on. So did he mean that in a personal? Did he mean you, or he just meant in general?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So I was trying to have a conversation with him. Oh, how's your day been? And that when we're trying to do hot laps and race. So, yeah, coming from a real hardcore racer's point of view, I'm a complete Barry, and yeah. So it was pretty cool. Yeah. So most racers nowadays, I just completely mute, don't say a thing, unmute after the race, and that's it. So just concentrate on one thing and one thing only.
Hey Brock, last night when we were organising the podcast and we had a pretty in-depth conversation, how did you place in that full-length Baku race at F1?
Oh, third place, actually. My rears were absolutely screwed by the end there, but that's the Force India... Sorry, Racing Point Force India for you. Got to get that right. Don't want to have any legal complications from that. But, it's a good little game, that one. A bit different from the Formula One on iRacing and the iRacing sim itself. But, always good to try something a little bit different and freshen up the mind.
At least you got a podium whilst organising the podcast. Apparently you're not taking the wise words of Shane Van Gisbergen, though. We've got something to think about.
That's all right. I think I work better when I'm distracted somehow.
Hey, I've sung during a Bathurst 12 hour, so it can work.
Oh, no. Remind me not to be in here for that, all right?
hey, we came 8th. It was all right.
Yeah, it worked for you, but there's other
Gave
people
everyone else a heart
attack.
attack.
So, Jared, you got, we just finished Monza. And by the way, I just received a message. Hold on. Jake Sperry. Hey, guys. I know you guys have got Phil Cell on. Please let him know that I trusted and ensured that he would go really well at Monza. And just let him know that I believed in him the whole time. That's nice. That's nice of Sperry to send that through. Anyway.
Very good timing from him too.
I know. I mean, being over in England, it's like at lunchtime. But anyway, moving on from that, you got the Enduros coming up, Imola, Bathurst. You guys, how do I even know? You're not exactly worried about anything, I wouldn't think. But how are you guys looking for that? You're teaming up with Josh for the Enduros?
Yep, same pairing as last year. I think, we did Road America, Phillip Island, Road America. I can't remember. We did Phillip Island and we won that. And then he had to do real world racing, so I partnered up with Sean for Bathurst, and then back to him for Road Atlanta. So hypothetically, if they didn't have that rule, the Enduro Cup would have been mine as well. But hey, someone else has to win it because that's the rules. But he will definitely be here for all 3 rounds this season. So we'll definitely be aiming to knock that one off the bucket list.
Good.
But I can confirm there has been no laps turned so far.
So it's definitely got to grab both this year.
Definitely.
No, actually, Jared strikes me as a guy who doesn't really mind. No, he's like championship here or there. No, it doesn't bother me.
I'll take it.
Always good to add to the resume. I was just going to say quickly, what sort of approach are you taking to Imola? Obviously, some people in the community have likened it to the Sandown of iRacing for the time being, obviously not having Sandown in the service at the moment. How do you feel about the track for the V8 Supercar and also doing a whopping 500 kilometres there in an endurance event?
I think it's polar opposite to Sandown, to be honest, unless the curbs. But no, I do like it. It was when it wasn't on the iRacing service, it was on Assetto Corsa, and that was my most driven track on there. I just really enjoyed it. So I think it really suits the V8. Whether it suits the endurance format or not is yet to be seen, but I definitely think it'll be quite good for the racing because there's plenty of passing spots, a few chicanes. Should be a good spectacle.
Should definitely be a good spectacle. I think it's one of the last time we were talking about Laguna Seca as being like, almost got a stigma that it's disliked through the community and everyone wanted to see Detroit Belle Island and stuff. I'm not sure if that's what you were alluding to with Brock with Imola. I don't know if it's disliked or anything, but I guess more people have got more familiarity with somebody like Bathurst than Imola.
I found the opinions split with Imola, so it's interesting to hear your opinion, Jared, that it's a good track. And just quickly, while we do touch on Belle Isle, what do you think of the V8 at that track? Obviously, we had an official round there, as well as I'm sure you've turned some laps as well. What do you think? Is it likening it to more like a Gold Coast style of track, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think it's anything. It's more or less a mix and match of some straight tracks in Australia, that's for sure. It is a really good track, though. I really do enjoy it in the V8, albeit the way the car is at the moment, you can't touch a wall because it just climbs it, which is irritating. And it would be really frustrating if we actually did race there this season and your race has ended because you've nicked the wall and all of a sudden you're out of control. So that's a good decision on that behalf, but hopefully with this new damage model, it'll fix that hitbox stuff because it's almost like the wheels are protruding out from the guards. That's why we see a lot of those people climbing over each other's wheels, crashes, and just getting flung off the track. And so hopefully iRacing sort it out with this new update coming soon.
So I was just going to ask quickly on the topic of SCOPS, it's kind of, for you, you've got quite a bit of speed under you. Whenever you go out on track, you just seem to have this beautiful way of driving the car. And we were talking a bit before the podcast, and we're just wondering what motivates you to go out there, every SCOPS event or whenever you jump into an official session and really go for it hard, even if you think you're going to be a bit stronger than some of the other drivers out there.
Yeah, I don't mean to be pig-headed or big-headed or anything, but in pre-qual, usually I'm just rolling around on the full fuel tank, just getting familiar with the track and just really trying to get every last inch out of the race spec car and really explore the limits of the track and whatnot. I know at Monza I was doing full fuel runs in pre-qual and I actually dumped the fuel out and went slower. So yeah, that's been my trend this season with pre-qual, that's for sure. I haven't actually found any time going to low fuel on most occasions, but it's just a matter of getting acquainted to the way the car drives on low fuel. Usually takes a few laps to get used to it. But I think that's, as I said before, not to be big-headed or anything. I think it's really starts from there. I mean, some of the guys, like the top 10, top 15 guys that are pretty consistently in, they could probably focus on a race package rather than all-out pre-qual to try and get the tape measure out and see who's the best for pre-qual when it means absolutely nothing.
So for you, from the sounds of it, you're saying you sort of use pre-qual more as a race testing session almost, as opposed to actually going out there and, doing pre-qual lap after pre-qual lap. Some guys are racking up 100 or 120 laps of just pure qualifying laps, whereas you go out there and you try and test the car on full fuel and see what you're in for come Sunday night when you're out there doing a 250-kilometre race, for example.
Yeah, correct. More or less just getting the car in the window with the setup. Doing a few runs. I don't usually do a full fuel run. I usually just do a few. Send off some data and just back-to-back test it. Just basically just practice the track, I guess. Those guys that are absolutely grinding it out lap after lap, they're in a position where they're kind of forced to do that because the series is just uber competitive at the moment, and half a tenth mean everything to those guys hovering, if anything, from 30th to 50th. There's 20 positions there that can be separated within a tenth to 2 tenths. So
most of us out there, yes, hashtag most of us.
I kind of feel for them, to be honest.
Oh, no, I know the feeling.
The sympathy is really, really welcomed. Go on, Jared. Hey, mate, I just wanted to make a comment. You mentioned about, not wanting to sound pig-headed or anything. I just want to let you know from me that I don't think it sounds pig-headed. You sound like a guy who's quite, well put together, mate. Like, you know who you are, you know what you can do, and you kind of have a standard for yourself. It's quite apparent talking to you here that you're focused on you and what you can do, especially the comment about SVG and how we told you if you just shut the gob and just get your mind focused on driving the car, you can be the best in the world. It sounds like that's really kind of philosophy where you really know that you really can be the best and you're kind of showing the world that you are. To kind of just move on from that, I've seen this clip on YouTube. It's one of my favourite clips, watching a few people talk about Michael Schumacher, the great F1 champion, and they said that sometimes he was in the car and he'd come out and they'd say, mate, how the hell did you go so fast? And his reaction was, well, I don't know. That's just that's what I do, and I can't understand how everyone else can't do it. And it kind of makes me think of something you might go through. In saying that, the question is, is there something blindingly obvious that you can see everyone else is just not doing that you're doing?
Naked to the eye, no. But being the VRS coach and doing group lessons and one-on-one sessions and whatnot, you've got guys that are maybe 6 seconds off you, and it's like, well, sometimes they're only a second off, and realistically, a second to 6 seconds in racing terms is a long way, depending if it's F1 or not, whether that's just like 1 to 3 spots because F1's a joke. That's another story. I'm not really sure. It's interesting when you do look at the data. It is dependent on hardware to some degree, but I feel the most important thing, I say it to all the students, that if you get the line right on the track, everything else will work itself out. So if you're braking too late into a corner or too early, then you're traveling too slow, and then you're turning in too late or too early or whatnot. And it's a bit of a weird one. So if you can get the line right in and out of corners, then I feel like throttle application, brake, and everything else that'll eventually come a little bit later. But yeah, just finding your way around the track first, rather than just crying for help or racking the brain changing the set, is no good. So I tend to learn the track before the car, if that makes sense.
Oh, the word that springs to mind is rhythm when you explain that. Like, that's what I think of.
Pretty much. Yeah. Most of the races that I do are almost a blur, because I look down at it's lap 14 and then next minute it's lap 30 and I don't even remember doing those laps. Almost like you're just stuck in that rhythm and just focused, and it's almost a bit of a blur.
So it's sort of like your sort of brain takes over as cruise control sort of thing. Just do what you've practiced all of the pre-qual sessions. Like you say, find that line and stick to it, and that's where you are sort of lap 30 going, okay, here we are, let's keep going.
Yeah, pretty much. It does feel like a lot of cruise control, and feels like, I mean, it might look like it's easy.
It doesn't.
In the broadcast, but it honestly, it feels easy as well. I don't mean to make it sound like the car's easy to drive, but I can't explain it. Like if the car's on and it's doing everything you want it to do, then you don't have to work as hard.
I think it's a flow state, Norrie. The flow of once you know the tools of your trade. Like, listen to me speaking like I know what I'm talking about. But honestly, like what you're saying, when you're coaching these people, there's technicalities, there's feet, there's footwork, there's hands. When all that stuff is kind of in the back of the brain, it sounds like you seem like someone who just doesn't really care, like, about that there's cars around you. You're just going to drive in the zone, and like it happens to be good for you that it seems to be really, really fast wherever that zone is. But would that be a fair assessment that you don't try and get involved in all those kind of battles and that kind of ego thing? Like, obviously you're proud of your results, but you just basically get in the car and just want to feel free and just flow through the track lap after lap? Yeah,
basically. Just lead from the front and forget everything else. Because if you got someone bombing it up the inside of you, then you're not, I mean, you're focused on driving and whatnot, but there's just another element to focus on, really. I mean, you gotta, oh shit, I gotta get past this bloke. How am I gonna do it? Even sometimes I tend to think there was Sonoma this year behind Dane. I was following him for quite some time. Ethan at Snetterton as well. Even Jake, even though that was a bit hard.
At Watkins, you mean?
Yeah.
There was contact.
Very highly entertaining, though. Highly entertaining, mate.
Just a little bit of contact. Just, I don't know. I feel like I was following their rhythm. And it's not like their rhythm's crap or anything, but it's a bit different to mine. So where I'm making up time to them, but more or less, you end up in their zone. You're just sticking with them, and then you're almost waiting for a mistake. Or you almost like 2 laps into following someone, you know exactly where they're weak and where you're strong, and you know exactly where the move's going to be pulled off. You're just waiting for the moment, really. So, yeah, that was definitely those 2 races. I definitely knew like laps and laps in advance where it was going to happen. I just needed to put myself in the position to execute it.
So moving away from SCOPS just a little bit for a sec, because I just want to talk about your little side project, which is your JF Race Art. It's quite a popular thing you've created, with a few people getting to hang their favourite track on the wall. It's such a unique idea. I just want to touch on, how did that come about?
Yeah, it was a bit of a weird one, actually, because I was actually looking at getting some stuff done overseas, and the pricing was astronomical. Like, it was bloody ridiculous. And yeah, it was really weird. One of the guys at work started doing their own thing and doing it, and I ended up catching on to it and ended up just going along with it myself and doing my own thing and just getting the tracks made up and then cutting them out. And I originally was just going to make them for myself until I shared it with everyone, and then kind of took over from there. And it's definitely a cheaper alternative to the overseas gear, but if not, same quality for a much, much cheaper price.
Exactly.
Plus, you're able to make tracks that we all know and love in this part of the world too. I'm sure that someone over in Germany is not making, like, Queensland Raceway.
Yeah.
Although they just got to unfold a paperclip for that one.
The track inventory is mainly Australian-based, which is good, I guess.
And do you enjoy doing that? Like, does that, even though it's a side project and it's something that you do, it sort of came along because of your interest, do you enjoy doing it, enjoy being able to bring some of these tracks to life for the people that get to hang them up on their walls next to them?
Yeah, definitely. I've got a few up on my wall behind the sim rig and whatnot. So yeah, it's definitely cool. I mean, you're having a look at other people's sim rigs and their rooms, and especially that the Nordschleife jigsaw one that I've got on the page. I cut it. I never put it together when I first got it. I've probably done about 4 or 5 of them now, but I've actually never put one together. So I truly didn't know how big it was going to be until I saw it on the wall for the first time, and someone sent me a photo of it, and it's unbelievable, to be honest. It's bloody crazy, that thing.
The photos I've seen, is that your one where you've got the light, like the kind of neon light in the background, or is that someone else's?
No, that's probably someone else's.
It's a good look. I think they've got like Bathurst with a bit of a neon look. We try to go for a little bit of a retro synthwave vibe at the moment on the podcast. I like that neon pink Bathurst. But anyway, that's my strange taste. But mate, I think we might wrap it up a bit. We've been on here for a while, and I think we've got as much out of you as we possibly can. And I'll definitely send over Chris Kessey's link to the Grip Packs folder, which if you could kindly add to, that'd be fantastic. But I think that after speaking to you, I don't think that I think the grip hack myths are kind of getting a little bit blown out of out of the window, because it just seems like you're someone who has extreme focus and dedication to basically putting yourself in a state where it's you and the track, as opposed to just getting mixed up in all the other stuff. So, mate, thank you for coming on and spending time with us. And I'm sure that anyone who hears this, whether it's tomorrow or in a year's time, is going to get a whole bunch out of it, mate. And I hope you can come on again at some point in the future, Jared.
It's been my pleasure. I'll endeavour to come back on whenever the time suits, or whenever there's a free slot, that's for sure.
Maybe once we crown you champion at the end of the year.
Don't jinx it.
I won't.
Yeah, podcast curse. Well, before you head off, mate, is there anyone you want to shout out? I mean, sponsors and also, where can we get some of the JF Race Art at? Have you got a website or something?
No, just doing Facebook stuff at the moment. A website may come later on down the track, depending. That's just if I stay at my job. So that's just JF Race Art on Facebook. I'll give a shout out to my big sponsor, Harrop Engineering, being on the car for 2 seasons now. They've been massive help behind the scenes. A lot more than anyone knows or will know. That's my secret.
Group hacks.
No, definitely not. No, they've been fantastic, as well as Bryce. He's been absolutely amazing, and as well as Virtual Racing School on the side of the car. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, thanks again, mate. Yeah, we definitely, there is going to be absolutely a slot to come on again. So yeah, mate, take care. Good luck in the Enduros, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers, guys.
Okay, well, that was really, really, really good to have Jared on the podcast. I mean, we talk about Jared a lot because you can't help it when he does what he does in SCOPS, and this is a SCOPS podcast. So we're mentioning him a lot, but to have him on was a really nice insight, and I really enjoyed the time that we spent with Jared then.
Absolutely. Like, massive thanks to Jared for making the time to come and speak to us. It's always great when you get the perspective of someone who is at really the peak of their game. And we know Jared's always winning these races, and stealing ideas out of him whilst casually doing an interview is sort of why I'm trying to get into the top split of SCOPS. So let's hope next time out of Imola, I can put some of his training to the practice.
Yeah, I think it was really, really interesting to have a chat to him, and it was great that it it didn't just stick with Scops. We sort of bounced all over the place, and it was really interesting to hear about, his side business at the JF Race Up, which is really, really impressive, by the way. If you guys haven't checked that out, anyone that's listening, go to his Facebook page, JF Race Up, and give it a look. It's awesome. But also just his view on Scops and the way iRacing's going and where they're headed in the near future with some of the updates where we're hearing rumours of coming to the game. I think that, like you said, he's at the top of his game.
Game? Did you call it a game?
Sorry, simulation. He's like you said, he's at the top of his game, and he knows what he's talking about as well. Setup wise, the simulation, weather wise, it's really impressive. And as you guys said, thank you for coming on, Jared. It was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, I think in a nutshell, we all learned a lot. Maybe not what we thought we'd learn. I mean, Norrie, you mentioned about taking the secrets, but quite sobering was the fact that these secrets, quote unquote, they're not necessarily something you can just go out and implement like a grip pack folder and just chuck it in the drive and just start driving like fuel cell. It's more of just
it doesn't work that way.
But then the lesson that I've learned is that Jared, just by maybe removing himself a little bit to concentrate on just himself in the seat, in the car, him versus the track.
Yeah.
It's something to take away, not getting in too involved with some of the drama that goes on. And, mate, the more time he's put into his mind frame of getting himself into a flow state on a track, I think that's benefited him greatly.
I'm glad you mentioned that word because that was the biggest thing I took away from Jared's interview just there. Flow. You need the flow right.
Yeah, mate. I'd say flow, mindset, yeah. So, Brock, you'd have to take that back to the ASM chat during races. What do you reckon?
I think so.
Are they going to catch on?
I think I'm going to have to give a sneaky little whisper over to the team and just tell them the word flow. That's all you need to know. That's how you can be an alien in iRacing and win championships. Flow. You
did say you have to put a sneaky little whisper in, but that whisper's going to get lost in a sea of voices.
The way it goes, probably, yeah. There's going to be all this banter, and there'll be just the word flow right in there, but it'll get lost again, and it'll all go downhill, but it'll come back up again, and it's just it's a nice little flow, you could say.
Well, I know Jared's mentioning of having drivers such as SVG and Scott McLaughlin letting him know that, hey, if you really want to get good at this thing, maybe stop all the chat and the banter while you're driving and just make sure you focus. I mean, everyone has a different approach, and I personally am not judging anyone. I have no stake in anyone's claim, but definitely something to think about it because a lot of us stay on Discord and everything, and we'd love to see more competitors up there winning races and being in the top shout like Jared and like Ethan, Madison, Forzan, Wayne Burke, etc. We'd love to see Dane get in there and you guys, but some of that chat. Maybe take a book out of Jared's, a leaf out of Jared's book, not mentioning any names.
Book out of Jared's leaf.
Yeah, not mentioning any names though. Thomas Hins. I'm not mentioning any names. Don't want to make it personal, Thomas. Thanks. Hinsey. Did
someone say McPleb? What? Anyway, yeah, okay.
Can you hear that? What the hell is that? I can hear. Can you hear
something? It's nothing. It's really nothing. Stop it.
Don't worry about it, guys. It's fine. I can't hear anything.
Oh my god, it sounds good.
Oh, what's happening, boys?
Who let this Muppet into the studio?
No.
Who is
What's happening?
I think it's Frankie Valligot.
I'll tell you what. I'm G'd up. Am I Frankie Valley?
Straight out of Oxford Street, we have Chris Kessey in the house.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. Chris.
Oxford Street is booming at the moment.
Your Discord nickname's changed. It used to be Herbert Charles, whoever that character is, but Kessey, Queen of the Desert. What? Chris, Queen of the Desert. Kessey. Hey, buddy, I know that you're away and we just had to interview like the reigning champion Phil Cell, but you had to depart the podcast with one of the most important interviews we've had to go and see a Broadway musical. Tell us about that.
Well, mate, it was a cracking Broadway musical. If anyone gets a chance to go see the Jersey Boys, they're on for the next 3 bloody months. I'm pretty sure. It was a cracking time. However, my apologies go out to Jared because unfortunately he got stuck with Brock instead. But I'm sure he did a great job.
I think he won in that one.
I'm sure he did a great job, mate. It was a disappointment to miss out on the interview. I'm sure you guys did cracking, but Yeah, I'm all pumped up and ready to go for the rest of it.
Well, don't struggle or stress too much, mate. I know you're drunk off the magical melodies of Frankie Valli and the Jersey Boys. But we're here to talk about some, serious stuff like SCOPS and iRacing V8s. Something your limp hand floozy friends over there might not know about. But anyway, let's move on. Monza. Monza, we just had Monza, and actually, to bring it back to Queen of the Desert, Kessey.
Chris's current night.
Somehow, with the flamboyant fluctuation of your recent driving stats, you made it through to the top split. So, mate, big round of applause. Nori clap for Chris.
Top split.
That is making the podcast. Wow. Well, thanks, mate. I appreciate it. It took 40,000 laps and a lot of screaming and hitting my head against the steering wheel. And apparently that eventually works. So yeah, no, it was good fun to finally get that under my belt.
Good tactic. I like it.
I think that's a slight exaggeration by about 1,000.
Well, hey, Nori, you still haven't made your debut in top split, mate. So
Hey, he was doing them around Bristol Motor Speedway, guys. Come on, give him a break. 40,000 laps is nothing around there.
No, hashtag one track wonder.
Oh, two track wonder, because Daytona you had a pretty good shout as well in AOSC. I've got to say, it's the big braking zones. I'm actually thinking that it's really just a big trick, like a magical illusion, that you're not actually that fast. It's just the tracks with really long straights, enough to, let's just say, theoretically take a massive swig of a tinny, might be helping your cause out.
No, it was really, in all seriousness, it was really good fun, and I had some unfortunate events roll out in the first few laps. However, it was definitely a cracking experience to be up there with some of the really fast guys. Obviously, I had Jarrad behind me because I was the last car on the lead lap, and I definitely couldn't keep it up with him. However, it was really good fun anyway. So.
Yeah, I know that you're in the market for a new hard drive, because at the moment yours is filled up with all those screenshots of your car in front of Jarrad.
And Frankie Valli music.
And they go hand in hand. Chris has a slideshow running consistently 24 hours a day of those shots and Frankie. But
the "Oh What a Night" song was actually about my experience that night. So.
I mean, no, it was great, Kessey, to see you in there. I mean, I'm proud as a teammate of yours and podcast. It was really, really awesome to see, mate. Pity what happened on lap one. Yeah,
I saw his car become Flatchat, and I tuned out. So sorry, mate.
Unfortunately, there was only half a Flatchat logo on the car after the third lap, so. There wasn't many panels left on it.
Unfortunate incident, but it was, like JC said, massively proud of you to see you make that step. So good job, buddy.
Thanks, boys.
And you nearly made it up to the pointy end of the grid to maybe get a shout in for a Sperry nickname, but not quite yet, mate. Not quite yet.
You'll be there soon. You will be the next Genie.
The Genie?
Kessey, Queen of the Desert. Anyway.
No.
Can we get that started? I'd love to on podcast. We need a message Sperry now.
We need you to make this Kessey's nickname, Kessey, Queen of the Desert.
It's just preempting how much you're going to be taking to the sand at Sonoma next year. So that's Queen of the Desert. Queen of the Desert. Because there's no straights and you haven't got any alcohol, and the beer hat's still on order. So those tracks we know with no long straights is just not up your fancy. But we'll see how we go next year. Anyway, moving on. So the results at Monza were as such, with JARRAD FILSELL winning the race. He was about, what was it, boys?
A whiles up the road.
It was 13 seconds, I believe, thereabouts. And yeah, he was... Look, for a track where Mr. Speary himself, unfortunately... predicted would not be one of his fastest tracks. I don't really know if he's lost one there yet.
So we had Madison finishing up in second, 12.5 seconds down, and then not too far behind Madison with Ethan Griggold, about 20 seconds back. Forzan next. Good shout for Brady Myers for TTL finishing. It was granted,
Massive shout. That's a PB for Brady. Great
5th
job.
place, fantastic.
And his form has only been improving. Like every week that he's with TTL, he's getting more consistent and he's getting faster as well, which is awesome to see and great to see that improvement. And I'm sure we'll see him challenging for wins very, very shortly, particularly with the Enduro season coming up.
Yeah, we've been kind of mentioning that last week as well, haven't we, guys? How the Enduro season for TTL and Brady, especially Bathurst, because though we have many Bathurst specialists amongst the community, I think Brady is one of those guys that is kind of got a bit of a stake to claim too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think they won. Burkett and Brady won. They won the AOSC Enduro.
You can't say that now without thinking of the cafe. But they do really have a point to prove, and Brady's at that point in his career. He's made this move to TTL. He needs to be having these PB results, and he needs to be pushing further up the grid because he's only going to go further. There's no going back for Brady at this point.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, and it was followed by one of his closest mates as well. I'm sure he'd be pretty happy with that result, Mr. Sam Blacklock Media himself. Just behind him, about 2 seconds behind him. So that's a rivalry that's been going on since the Dev Series a couple of years ago, where Sam and Brady were 1 and 2 in the championship. So it's good to see that rivalry continue.
Well, Sam did messages and let us know that he was really bound for a podium, except in the car he had to design a few car liveries, so he had to just take a couple of seconds out to get them finished. That's why he finished a couple of seconds behind Brady. But next time, Sam.
All I can imagine there is Jean Girard with his cup of tea in Talladega Nights, sipping away at it while he's racing. Just Sam's got his Photoshop out in the car while he's racing along. Some sort of music playing in the background, maybe the Four Seasons. I don't know, but
does that make Brady Ricky Bobby?
Oh no.
Sure, why not?
Brady knows what to do with his hands.
Don't cover up the windscreen, Brady. You're all right. You don't need Fig Newtons.
But he loves Fig Newton.
Moving on.
So behind Sam, another 10 seconds down the track was Ian Ford. So Ian's taken back to the track and showing some fantastic results. So that was 7th place. Josh Muggleton behind him and Jake Burton in 9th. Brendan Hodgson behind him in 10th. So Hobbo 88 finishing just behind Jake and
bit of a good battle there, mate.
What, the Burton and Hobbo?
Yeah, mate. I saw a couple of clips go around. Look like
what are you getting at, mate?
Controversial is the word I'd go for. But
yeah, absolutely. There was some controversial blocks made there. Obviously, we can only see from the clips we did see. We can only see one view, so you can't really just pin something on someone from one view. Race control, I'm sure we're all over it, and
I don't know. I've made an entire career out of it, so why not?
Yeah, mate. That's why you're in my Enduro co-driver.
I was totally in the right there.
I think you got it. Like you said, it's kind of that one view, and you got to consider as well in the heat of the moment. You take one look in your mirror, and it's hard to judge the space. So these things can happen. I mean, the important thing is no one got taken out. But yeah, I mean, the clips that have been going around afterwards are a little bit controversial and interesting to watch and see the different points of view from different drivers and the reactions that have come after that. It has sparked on the SCOPS forums a massive debate. Now, if you're not interested in getting into that, grab some popcorn. Otherwise, have fun.
Yeah, you're right.
And Michael Jackson gifts.
Michael Jackson with the popcorn. It is quite thrilling to read those forums. But, the thing I'd like to say is that there is a fun side of the entertainment of watching these videos and getting involved in the drama. I find it fantastic. Drama's great. But to the point of, labelling race control for favouring teams or letting things slip and slide because they're a favoured team and stuff. I don't know who made the comment. I'm not calling anyone out, but I would hope that wouldn't be the case and that isn't going on. Because I think at the end of the day, race control, no matter how many anyone's got opinions, it's great to have them, but race control is the one that we need to look to for the safety and security that we're confident that they have everything under control. And if it's a problem, they'll do something about it. And if they haven't done anything about it, then that's where the cards lie and leave them there. That's my opinion.
When I feel like I've joined a race and I'm behind someone and I feel I'm a little bit faster and maybe they're blocking a little bit, at the end of the race, I normally just look at myself and go, well, should have qualified higher. And that's really where I stand on that.
And back on the race control point there, yeah, it's sort of, favouring teams and that sort of thing. That's just a bit of a silly thing to say almost. Like, race control have so many different incidents, and if anyone has a look at the incident document that they update after every SCOPS event, the amount they've got to go through for split 1 and split 2, and if there are 2 races as well for split 1, it's a massive effort. Kudos to them for taking the time out of their day. And you know what? Sometimes people aren't going to be happy with the decisions, but they're the ones making them, and they're the ones putting that effort in there. So, a lot of people like to argue the point, but there aren't a lot of people that would step up and, take that into their hands and take the responsibility that it is being race control and really do it correctly.
Like you say, Brock, unless they're going to put their hand up and go and sit in that race control booth and watch that race, those incidents from every angle, take any bias out of it at all, shut up and listen to them, because they do an extraordinary job, and they should be congratulated for taking their time to monitor these races.
The same goes for real life racing. You see, some biased Tickford supporters, like, I don't know who they would be, but claiming that Red Bull Racing and always get the nicer side of the stick. But I know at heart that that's not true.
But they do.
Yeah, look, Roland Dane's got a lot more money than one of these sim racing teams.
but I can back my theory up. I'm happy to go sit up in that booth.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, mate, and that's exactly why Michael Caruso hasn't won the last 7 championships. I know. Yeah. I get it now. I get it.
The ninja shifter.
It's not my fault. Nissan's been shit for 15 bloody years.
Why does this always happen to me?
Why me?
Anyway, actually, before we move on, I'd just like to say that is true. And the race control, they deserve respect, not just for doing the job they do, but there's a community out there of like hundreds of drivers with pretty big opinions and on the forums, etc. It's not just the fact that they are there and they do their job and they watch a race, but they kind of make decisions they have to live with, and they stand by against all these, opposing opinions and crazy banter and drama that goes on. So it's not just the decisions they make, it's actually the consequence of having to deal with the crazy backlash and stuff that goes on. So yeah, they deserve a lot of respect. So, something to think about. But so split 2 in Monza. There was a great race.
There's one massive talking point about the second split in my eyes, and that's Brad Ratu getting his first win in SCOPS at all, and getting pushed through the top split. It was very close between him and Chris Coxhead, but either way, he got the job done. I know that Coxhead was catching him in the last few laps, but Brad did a great job to hold his own, and that's sort of it's done justice for what Redback Racing Team and has been doing in the last 6 months or so.
I was just going to say, Brad has been really improving of late. Like he's been putting in massive amounts of practice, and it's obviously showing. To come first in split 2 and have that opportunity to race in first split is it's an eye opener for the guys that get to go up and do it, but it's also a real testament to how hard they push and where they've gotten to. And I'm not exactly sure of where he came in top split, but I know that he made up some great ground and didn't qualify too badly either. So, it's definitely a good thing that we're shouting him out here, because he more than deserves it for his effort in Monza, and hopefully for him and for Redback Racing Team, who have also been on the up in recent times. That just keeps improving as the days go on, and with Enduros coming up, as we've been saying, it's a great opportunity to really show the strength of a team that's been building like a Redback Racing Team.
Just to recap, third position on the podium for split 2 was Daryl Carter, second Chris Coxhead, and as we've just been mentioning, Brad Ratu for Redback Racing. And to keep Brad Ratu and Redback in our minds, let's move on to our next guest. The team manager from Redback Racing themselves, Mark Samuel. he's come on. He came on maybe last week, so we got a chance to sit down with Mark in the studio and talk about some of the stuff he's been going through with Redback and their rise of late. It's been 6 months that they started this new kind of trajectory, and in the last month or two, I don't think anyone hasn't paid attention to the results that those guys have had in AOSC, OSR, and obviously SCOPS like Brad Ratu, etc., and Chris Robinson. Please enjoy, and it's a long one, but it is extremely interesting. And if you have any idea or any thoughts about getting into management and what it takes to really do it properly, then you really want to listen to Mark and what he has to say. There's a lot of gold nuggets in there. So yeah, enjoy. Mark Samuel.
So joining us in the studio, we have the team manager of one of the teams making quite a splash in both Australian Online Supercar Series and what we're all here for, V8 SCOPS. I'm of course talking about Redback Racing Team's Mark Samuel. Mark, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
G'day guys, happy to be here.
Well, I'll tell you what, mate, it's good to have you on the show. You guys seem to be really coming good in the most recent year. You guys have definitely grown as a team, and mate, we really like to know some of those secrets that you've done to bring up Redback into the top of the field.
Yeah, mate, no worries. Yeah, it's been pretty amazing. I mean, you look at last year, and I don't think anyone even did SCOPS. We didn't even know how to load a paint up into the SCOPS folder. No one even bothered racing. Then this year, sort of started from a little bit of occasionally getting in the second split to then sort of, Chris being up there in the top split all the time, and that's what we come to expect from him. And then we've got a bunch of other drivers that are just sort of in the second split, almost sort of week in, week out, which is really good.
Chris has been a name that we've seen and we talked about on previous shows that we, all three of us here on the podcast, when we raced together in the development series, he was one of the drivers that was always up the front and that time to beat. And it's only been a matter of months that he just almost burst onto the SCOP scene, and it's not like he just was running around the back either. He's up there fighting for the top 10, top 20 results. I've heard from some drivers of yours that Chris has been quite instrumental in your growth recently. Can you elaborate on how Chris has helped you guys out, or what part or role he plays with you guys?
Yeah, so it was round one this year. Chris was on pole position for second split at SCOPS. He just missed out at Road Atlanta in that top split. And since then, it's sort of lit a bit of a fire underneath him. He spent a lot of time in the sim, a lot of practicing. He's really leveraged the TTL relationship to sort of get the most out of his driving. Spending a lot of time with those guys, learning the tracks, learning the car, learning his driving style and the setup as well. And sort of he's online a lot of the time, which means the other guys can get in there and get the setups from him or just follow him around the track. And he's happy to spend a lot of time with the guys in the sim, coaching them around, and sort of it's starting to rub off on some of the other sort of the other drivers that are trying to catch him.
So it effectively sounds like he might be siphoning out some of that TTL driver academy knowledge through the team.
Yeah, mate. How does that work, mate? That's something we're definitely all interested in seeing. That's been a big partnership between you guys and TTL Esports.
Yeah, look, just sort of when the TTL Esports thing really started with Jamie McKnight and his testimonial about them, and that sort of got me thinking maybe it might have a go for myself. And after a few sessions, sort of got to know the guys of Richard and Josh, and then sort of pitched it to them that maybe I'd like to let us promote their academy. We seemed like a pretty good petri dish of drivers that could benefit from some sort of coaching. We've got a low-hanging fruit, as it were. So they were sort of quite happy for us to promote their brand and chuck the logos on the car, and then that sort of got us a little bit closer to them. And then we were able to sort of, chat with them out of the sim, get some setup information, sort of have a few hosted sessions with them from time to time, and have all the TTL guys jump in with us at Redback. And even if you're not sharing data per se, but, following around the track in hosted sessions, you can look at eye speed, all that sort of stuff. Really, really helpful.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just typing a message to Richard Hampstead as we speak. Sounds like something that we might want to jump on, mate. Look, you added that you guys are definitely a good petri dish to promote the TTL Esports Driver Academy. Can you tell us, like, you guys have definitely grown in numbers. Can you tell us what sort of numbers are you sitting at the moment when it comes to drivers, Mark?
So at the beginning of the year, we had sort of about half a dozen active drivers. We'd lost a few big names had gone. Aaron Lee had gone because he wanted to spend some time in the HPD. Warren Pickering had gone, a bit more GT3. The team was down to sort of about half a dozen active guys. We put a bit of recruitment out. Obviously, picked up Chris, who was a bit of a coup, and a few other drivers as well came in at the same time. About, to be honest, actually probably more about 30 at the moment, active drivers across GT3 and V8, which is kind of, it blows me away every time I look at the spreadsheet with all their names in it. Some of them more active than others. And some of them are even, outside Australia, some in New Zealand. So it's pretty big rabble of dudes to try and manage. But for the most part, everyone gets on and sort of is quite proactive together. Talk, pretty good team banter, which is that sort of team glue, which is sort of, what it's like when you hire someone and get someone into your team. You don't really have like a probation period. They sort of come in and you just sort of cross your fingers that they're going to work.
No perma bans then.
Well, I think it was made mention them probably on one of the Scops broadcasts, I think a couple of rounds ago, that actually no one really tends to get fired from racing teams. It's not like real world. So once you're in, unless you do anything ridiculous, you generally stay there.
Oh, I'm safe. Sweet. Yep.
Only just, mate. Only just. I have seen the writing on the wall, Kessey.
Part of the thing of running that many drivers would have to be sort of keeping them all readily on the circuit. You say they're all pretty much all there, but do you find that they need a bit of encouragement, or the results on and off track seem to help them come back?
Definitely, it's sort of it's pretty active to keep the thing bubbling along. So we've got some people in the team that help with sort of writing up race results and stuff to do that social side, to sort of communicate to the people that follow us online. But also internally, we have sort of little debrief sessions where we might post in a private forum, how do we go? What was everyone's thoughts on the setup or whatever? A good example being Imola AOSC First Enduro, where we were pretty pumped. I think we had about 6 cars in the race, and we sort of did our best efforts to trip over one another, crash. We sort of, it was below where we wanted to be. We pretty much couldn't have got any worse. So we had a bit of soul searching after that, really looked sort of at one another and had a pretty, to be honest, pretty open and frank conversation about what we did bad, what went wrong, and what we can do next time to improve it.
What strikes me, Mark, about how you're talking about your team and what you unraveling, I guess, with the group of guys that you have, and you're still growing. The thing that strikes me is you're very honest, and it seems like you've got a bunch of honest guys as well to do something like reflect on races and specifically the negative points so you can get better. And I think that's really commendable, mate, that you have that attitude towards the team, and it's obviously showing in results. So it's top notch, mate. And
we've actually got Chris Radicic, who some people might know from the sort of sim racing community and sort of generally racing at large. That's a bit of a famous name, and he brings
Paul Radicic, right? He's his brother.
Yeah, he's Paul's brother, right? So absolutely. Right. So he brings experience around driver management and sort of head management, and it's really interesting when you've got people in the team that sort of. We did our average age of the 30 drivers. Our average age was 34 and a half in our team.
Get out of town, really?
Yep, 34 and a half.
You must be 100 then, Mark.
So we've got some guys that are over 50. And we've got some guys that are under 20. We've got one guy that's still at school. So it's a really broad mix.
I didn't know that. And that's impressive, I think, because most of the really, most guys are young who are really the guns, but you have quite a lot of guys who are really, really in the fight. So that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So what that means is Chris comes in and he's like, okay, look, I've seen this all before with racing drivers. They come in, they reckon they're, going to wipe the floor with everybody. 1 or 2 races, they're back down on their backside, and they've got to build themselves back up again. So Chris sort of brings a bit of real world driver experience to the team, and sort of is in my ear in the sidelines, about so and so. This is what happened in their race. I think this is good for them to pair up with such and such, because they're gonna complement one another. And now we're starting to look at data from VRS and things to pair up different people that have maybe similar driving styles as well, to really try and get a little bit more performance when you're talking those long enduros where, a couple tenths per second or per lap can actually make a difference over a 4-hour race.
I've got to say that it is really surprising and really, it's quite inspiring as well and eye-opening that you speak about the team and the guys you have, such as Radicic, who are bringing more of a psychological element to development. It's quite refreshing to hear. Not that other teams don't think about that stuff, but to hear it being spoke of the way that you are. I know a lot of the GT3, like European side of things with those type of teams, the Coanders, the TRL maybe, there's those F1 type of teams, they get into this kind of stuff. But I don't really hear it too much in our kind of SCOPS V8 side of the world, that you're really looking into the person and the driver as a person and developing them as a person as well. That's is that something that you've thought about, that you're aware that...
It just sort of just happened. I guess it came from, it sort of tried to merge the professional environment of, in the office and the workplace and bring that into the team and managing teams of people that way. Different personalities, who works well together, who doesn't. Good example, we had the Le Mans 24-hour on the weekend, and we had a bunch of guys that did stint after stint after stint, 2 guys that stayed up pretty much around the clock spotting for everyone. And that really galvanised the team over the weekend. People jumping into Discord, hey, how's it going? Well, up to, how many off tracks he got? We were in the split that only had 50 off tracks for the whole 24 hours. So it was a real challenge with the cars to get them home, and we got both cars home in the end. A couple laps off the lead, but to get 2 cars home in a 24-hour race with 50 incident limit, everyone was pumped. They're all getting on there saying this is the best team we've ever done on iRacing. I really love it. And this is, it's not all about, our team's not so much about status. We like the fast guys and we know what the pecking order is, but it's not so much about who's at the front, who's, it's not like we've got to keep one guy, one superstar guy, who's super happy and give him, blow smoke up his backside all the time. Everyone's equal.
Mate, again, Mark, I could talk to you and listen to what you have to say about the professionalism that you've brought to the team and to iRacing, and I hope that people listening get an insight. I'm sure that there's other guys and teams and managers out there that take it the same way, but it's a real eye-opener to me particularly. But, backing away from that, I just wanted to ask you about your Hampstead relationship and how you brought him in and to AOSC and how... Well, what that means, like what is the deal there? What's the dynamic there between you and Richard?
Yeah, it's pretty good actually. So Richard does think of it that he just sort of rocks up on the Friday with his helmet bag and there's the car, mate, in the garage ready to go. Off you go. So he's not really interacting with the team. He's in our closed private sort of Facebook forum where we can talk about debriefs and stuff. But he's not really active in that sense, and we don't really ask that of him. If he wants to participate, he's welcome to, but we respect that he's got his own team, and also there's a whole team behind him that he has to, manage on a day-to-day basis anyway. So we don't really like to cozy up to the TTL guys too much in that sense. It's more of a deal with Richard Hampstead, the man, not Richard Hampstead TTL with Redback. We just once again, we're chatting about the relationship we had with the coaching, and, we've talked to him frequently about who we've got coming up to get coached by the TTL guys, and we make sure we've got people lined up on the right days and times to see with them, and sort of lock it all in. And just sort of said to him one day, mate, what about coming to a season at the AOSC for Redback? They want to team me up with one of the guys in the Enduros, and we sort of had this sort of was about 3 months out from the season, and I said, look, you don't have to answer straight away. Let's just try to throw it out there. And to my sort of surprise, he didn't say no. Luckily, the good thing with being also involved with Nick on the AOSC side and the scheduling and the official series, we could do a bit of juggling so that Richard wasn't adversely affected from the GT3 World Series that he does. So we're able to work those schedules out so his drop rounds are on the right weekends and such. And then sort of when it came to crunch time, I said, look, mate, are you in or out? And he said he was in. So that was sort of doing little black tips there, and I was sort of keeping that secret from everyone for a while, which was pretty tough. But being able to announce that, have that video that we put out there and have him join the team, and sort of it definitely caused a bit of polarised a few people on the iRacing community for us sort of bringing him in.
Well, that's the thing, because on the other side of the coin of the more negative comments was, paid driver. Is this what we're doing in esports? I don't think, we didn't see it that way at all, but it is a funny notion that people would see it that
way. We didn't. There's nothing. We haven't disclosed anything that we're actually that's what the relationship is. We just said he's going to drive for us. So people made those assertions that that's the case. But you look at drivers that are in the top teams. They're getting benefits from those teams. Your Evolutions and TTRs and those guys, they're getting some benefits for racing. Not like they do it for free, but what I mean is they get sort of some of the spoils of those big sponsors that those teams have. So in that sense, it's not really any different.
Well, speaking of sponsors, you guys have changed your livery quite a bit over the last year and a half, and some pretty slick liveries out there. You flicked to the Bow Repairs livery for a while there, and now you're running the LeBlanc and what was the Inviso? Invisio, is that how I'm saying it right?
Yep. Yeah, Inviso, that's right.
Yeah, no worries. So you've landed those sponsorships in the last year or so. What has that meant for your team?
Well, the Bow Repairs thing was a bit more of part of our reboot as well. I guess we had the under new management sign out the front after Aaron Lee left the team. We really wanted to have a bit of a reboot, and one of the guys is the manager of Bow Repairs in Mackay. So he said, "Look, you know what? Let's get behind this," and we did delivery. We were sort of chasing some sponsors. We weren't really sure why we wanted a sponsor. I mean, we could just put whatever we want on the car, but we thought, well, maybe some sponsors might help us. We wanted to do stuff like driver training, and we wanted to reward the guys. And it was part of that strategy we put together about sort of stopping drivers leaving, but also making us look like a destination team. And it seemed like having a sponsor was, what everyone else was doing. Why not us? Luckily for me, the LeBlanc guys really wanted to get into sponsorship of motor racing. I didn't know anything about esports, and I showed them a bit about it, and they were keen to jump on board. We wanted to get people to partner with us that we could actually help them and they could help us, if that sort of made sense. We tried to make, ideally, an ecosystem where partners can come together, like in the real world, that can actually trade products and services offline from iRacing. So InZen, who do web design, helped us with our Facebook strategy about giving our page a bit of a revamp and different types of content that we could use to market the team and make it attractive to people. Because if you're looking at a small startup company that doesn't really have a lot of reach, and you've got a brand like a iRacing team that have maybe 2,000 followers in Australia, you can actually reach into those groups, especially if you look at their demographics, to get your product out there quickly.
That's almost like a mirror effect there, that the actual sponsor can help out with providing some analytics for you, that in turn then provides those analytics to the potential sponsor, if that makes sense.
That's exactly what it is. Exactly.
Yeah. That's really interesting, because I'm sure there are plenty of people out there, whether you're a team manager or just someone who can recognise that iRacing and esports has a pretty big future. Sponsorship's a big part of it. We can look at anyone from our smaller teams in SCOPS or whatever, getting some sponsorship just from a local brand, to all the way up to a Formula One team. Sponsorship is a massive part of what we do in esports, but some of us, I know I've had conversations with people in the team about sponsorship and how to put a proposal package together. You sound like you really know what you're doing there. Have you got any secrets you can disclose?
We basically put it this way, right? So we pitched to companies that are massive. We pitched to JCar, thinking that, oh my God, how could they possibly say no? And we'd done the livery up and everything. How could they? They're probably already out the front waiting to say yes. They were not interested at all. I thought JCar would be a perfect fit for esports with all our sort of techno hardware, blah-de-blah, that sort of stuff, but they weren't that interested. It's more those small companies that don't have anywhere to market their products. But you saw I think it's a couple of years ago, the Synergy Sim Racing guys had boost juice on their cars. So that was pretty good for them. It all comes down to those personal relationships and people that aren't really necessarily prepared to get a lot out of it in the short term, but sort of just have a bit of a passion.
So I understand, but so what is the pitch though? Do you have to really go into detail about the demographic that they're putting there?
Yeah, so we've got pretty much a stock standard sort of PowerPoint presentation that we just sort of trot out each time. It sort of talks about what is iRacing, who drives it. So, you've got Scott McLaughlin and Mike Zambrose, that sort of stuff. Talks about the team. Sort of we make up a bit of, make ourselves sound really super fancy. Talk about the opportunities. So we might show some analytical information from our Facebook feed or what type of people follow our page, because you can get all that stuff off Facebook now. How old are they? Where are they based? Capital cities, etc. And then generally, we also have a sort of a pricing structure. So you could be, gold, silver, bronze, or whatever, depending on how much money you wanted to put into the team, or maybe nothing. Once again, products and services from other people. Whereas some things we don't even do a pitch, we just message them. So the guys at GDH, iRacing Images, we wanted someone to give us some slick-looking pictures for our Facebook page, and we didn't really have the skills in-house all the time to do it. So
yeah, mate, I've seen some of them. They look the one you posted today was cracking. It was awesome.
So they do that for us. We just send them a replay, they do the pictures, send them back to us, and all they ask in return is to run the logos and promote their Facebook page. So there's a bit more passion involved with that one, rather than actual tangible benefits to him.
But the benefits to you and your brand are fantastic.
Well, yeah, good quality picture every time. I can give it to anyone in the team to write a review to put up on Facebook. I don't have to write it myself or take the screenshot myself. So it sort of spreads the load amongst the team and also gets the guys involved. They like putting, we gave our Discord a bit of a revamp so guys can get in there and post their race, whatever they're up to, and someone can just come in and scoop it up, grab a picture that's already done from GDH and just stick it online. It looks like a real pro post, the same sort of consistency and quality every time.
It's surprising how open you are about how you're operating. Is it something that you just so passionate and proud of, or do you want other people to follow in your footsteps?
I think I'm open. I have conversations with other team managers about how they run their team and what we do at our team, and sort of share information. I've let other team managers into our Facebook closed group just to look at some of the ways that our team interacts with one another. Short term, of course, just so they can have a bit of a look around. So they can take that away to their own teams to put stuff in. I reckon I don't have a problem being open with all that sort of stuff at all. End of the day, we're being, if it can help us as a community to get better, then that's great. And if it can sort of change, sometimes it'd be nice if we could all just get along a little bit. Some teams have, there's a lot of competition on and off the track. We try to be respectful to the other teams, and we don't sort of try and take drivers from under their noses and stuff. So we sort of treat people the way we'd like to be treated, and I don't think anything that we're doing at Redback is particularly earth-shattering and groundbreaking. Maybe it's just the approach that we're taking is slightly different. But yeah, happy to get to anyone if they want information on how we run things and what they could do to help their team or get better.
But I think that's what separates you and sets you in good stead, is that with that sort of willingness to help out each other. I mean, every team up and down the lane is in this for the same reason. We all want to be winners. We all want to take the crown, big note ourselves sort of thing. But to go and to ground it to such an extent is we're all doing the same thing. Let's have an open conversation about this. It's such an element which does put you a step apart from the rest, because other people would sort of think, no, let's keep it separate. And that your method sort of proves that there's the right way of doing it.
We sort of figured you sort of catch more fun. So it's in our interest to have good working relationships with all the teams and all the drivers, so that when you're going into Eau Rouge side by side, the guy does give you a little bit of extra room, because you do have to race with these guys literally 3 times a week. So if you look at the amount of time, you'll spend 2 hours with them on a Wednesday night, then you might spend 4 hours with them on a Friday night, so we're up to 6 hours already. You might do another hour Sunday, maybe an hour Monday. It could be up to 10 hours a week with the same people. Yep, so that's quite a lot. So we just try to be out there. We sort of, I try to be proactive with the other team managers to have a good relationship with them.
Yeah, it feels like the pennies just dropped for me that you are, well-versed in management, but also to do this on iRacing, which is, really, at the end of the day, it's a bunch of fun, isn't it? You must be quite a passionate motorsport fan in general. So where did this all start for you, mate? Did you grow up around like V8s, or you sound like you might be from the era of the, back when the V8s were around the touring car era or something?
Oh, mate, I remember we used to do the old, used to be the F1 on Channel 9 with Darryl Eastlake and Alan Jones.
Darryl Eastlake.
Yeah, and every Adelaide Grand Prix was around at the neighbour's place at the barbecue with, watch the Adelaide F1 on the TV, Mansell's blow up and all that sort of stuff. Back out at places like Amaru Park and Oran Park as a little fella with the old man. But then the sim racing thing is just, you just had a computer, you played Formula One games. I mean, you had the Commodore 64 and you had Test Drive. And you had the next one up and you got like World Circuit and then, all the Jeff Cremant games and, all that sort of stuff. And then to hook up with everyone in the team who wants to do the same sort of thing. So, yeah, it's quite some people come through different, like you've got these younger guys that come in just out of Xbox and they're playing on their Landrum TV. And you've got other guys that are fully, all in their sim gear. So it's sort of horses for courses really with those guys. But yeah, the passion is there and it's sort of an opportunity to sort of run a team and it's actually, what actually makes up for not being that fast. So at least we can get something out of it.
Mate, do you still follow it? Do you still follow it to this day, Mark? Do you still follow the F1 or maybe the supercars?
Totally, mate. Absolutely. I dragged my wife to Monza just after we got married. She
Jealous?
Didn't even know anything about F1, which was pretty.
That's the way to
amazing.
do it.
But she didn't know about F1.
No, not at all.
And you're sitting in the middle of the Tifosi at Monza. I
had to basically pretend that we were going on this big European holiday just to go to the F1. Oh, surprise, surprise, F1's on.
I know for a fact you're not the only one. And there's plenty of us out there.
That is the play of the year, mate. That is the play of the year.
What a lucky coincidence.
Yes. Look what's on.
Oh, let's go.
Monza. Wow, what a coincidence, honey.
Let's have a look at that.
Who would have thought? I imagine you guys are much the same though, right? With all that sort of that, sort of part of the fabric of your daily lives, right? Yeah. Maybe some more than others.
Yeah, you talk about golf widows, but yeah, there's definitely motorsport widows out there.
Taking the apexing in a shopping trolley.
You don't do that in car parks? Whoops.
That's what I heard you guys on the Flatchat podcast talking about that centre quote. That could have been about a shopping centre if you ask me. If you see a gap in the car park, you don't go for it.
Well, you have to make the dive because someone's going to come along in a Corolla and they're going to dive in there and they're not worthy of the spot.
Mate, I've got to make passes like Ricardo through Paddy's Markets every time I go through. I love it.
And there's always that one guy with a slowdown who will not get out of your way.
So which year did you get to Monza? Which race was it?
Oh, mate, it was, I think it was, Hamilton had just started and Alonso was in it for McLaren. What was that?
07, yeah.
And the only overtaker the whole race was Kimi being overtaken by Lewis, and I looked away. Pretty different to what we have in Australia.
What you mean at sitting at Eastern Creek and we can't leave the 20 by 20 metre area with my can of drink that I've just bought, my mid-strength Coopers. Well, does sound fairly different.
Kessey, luckily we had one Durand Acora from All-Star Motorsport rock up with the new Land Cruiser that could fit a pretty damn big esky in the back. You got that through.
Yeah, be cool, man. Be cool, man. Be cool.
But lots of lemonade in that van.
Sounds like
lemonade. That's right.
Sounds like you guys had a pretty good iRacing out there at the night race.
So we did meet up with quite a few, but one conversation I remember was one of your drivers, Jacob Ken Fen Knight. Really enjoyed talking to Jacob. I've raced Jacob quite a bit on different races here and there on iRacing, and so he's one of those guys that I always try and kind of pit myself against in a way. And he's gotten really fast of late, in the last couple of months. He just could not stop talking about how good it was to be at Redback. I know he's only joined you guys pretty recently, but it was almost like a convert, He was really, really positive about the team. Like, literally had a glint in his eye when he talked about the team. So, yeah, I was fascinated and couldn't wait to speak to you about it.
He's been programmed accordingly, which is good to know. He's behaving as planned. We actually tried to pinch those guys a while ago, probably 6 months ago. I sort of tried to we had a little bit of conversation about the two of them joining Redback, and they just would prefer to do their own thing at the time.
Two of them are referring to Kyle Stokes as well.
Kyle as well. And they wanted to just do their own thing, which is cool. I mean, to be honest, there's nothing wrong with my view of just having a chat to people and seeing what they're up to and asking if they'd like to know more about us. It doesn't always go anywhere, but at least they know who you are and what's on offer. And then when those two guys decided to do their own thing, and we were straight onto him. In fact, I think he actually came to us. I remember. Maybe we came to him. I can't remember now, but it happened pretty quickly. Joined up with the team. We were lucky to, as you know from your probably own experience, that some teams aren't necessarily looking to hire people at a time, so they recommend, hey, go over here. We know what they're like, talk to so-and-so, and then that's what happened. He was recommended to us, and off we went.
Well, he's definitely got his wings. You can't deny that at Redback.
Yeah, we've teamed him up with Brad Rattu, who's one of our sort of young chargers who came from ASM over to Redback. And those two actually sort of have a good working relationship. They really complement each other's style on the track. And Brad got, well, I don't know if you saw on the weekend, there was a thing called SCOPS. And Brad managed to nail Redback's
this little thing called SCOPS. Mate, he did a cracking job taking out Split 2. He also did a cracking job going 2 wide with Daniel Williams, and unfortunately that didn't end up well for me. Wasn't Brad's fault, just you know, sort of
it was
putting it out there.
iRacing.
Thanks,
The
Daniel.
iRacing incident.
There was 3 problems there. Ford, Holden and Monza.
Yeah, this little thing called SCOPS, mate. Brad is definitely someone to watch. I mean, you guys have now got 3 guys in my eyes who are definitely up-and-comers, not just Chris, but Brad and Jacob. They're definitely monstering their way into top split. I mean, it was great to see Brad make his debut. And I reckon for the future, mate, that their top 15s, top 10s are going to start flowing.
Those are the guys that I think if anyone team can make that next step to challenge the TTRs and the TTLs and the Star Motorsports, and those are the guys that are going to do it. And if you look at, I think, some of the results, we're actually sort of best of the rest in some of those races behind all those big teams.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You guys, it sounds like you guys are becoming one of those big teams. I mean, that's the way that a fair few of the people I've been speaking to have seen it. You guys have just cracked onto the scene in the last few months have been really big for you guys. You got a podium in AOSC with Jacob and Brad at Daytona, which was an awesome job. The rate that those guys are improving, they're definitely going to be challenging some of those TTR guys up the front, and should be fun to watch.
Yeah, it all sort of got a bit, sort of stuff got real, I guess, when Tom and Richard Hampstead teamed up last season, I think it was, in the AOSC.
Yeah,
and they actually had a really good, Gilles Villeneuve, Tom, managed to, he had like a super duper drive, keeping within that gap for Richard to be able to pull out the lead, and Tom to still maintain in that window. And kept the car straight, which was, you know, what he was asked to do. And those guys got their first win. I mean, I don't know if you saw the post-race interviews on that, but Tom was like, he was so pumped. And then to come and do it again, I think they did it at Phillip Island again. That sort of like, well, okay, sort of surprise, we're here. And they managed to just sort of keep that ball rolling.
Yeah, that was a bit of the first sign. I went from one day, I was battling Tom Curran, and then all of a sudden, he's winning AOSC races.
It's pretty nice. It was amazing, actually. You wouldn't believe my inbox got flooded. I guess by flooded I mean 3 messages from people giving their congratulations to the team. People like Bernie, who, you know, his goal of the team was to get them into SCOPS, full stop. And next thing you know, we're in SCOPS, getting wins in OSC, getting podiums on his broadcast as well, which is really nice, considering the amount of time and effort he put into starting the thing. So, yeah, I think I hope the challenge now is to maintain that momentum after the AOSC season finishes, after Richard goes back and he's on the other side of the fence, that we don't sort of have a bit of a lull. We've got to keep going up and up and up, otherwise it will just be seen as just the Richard effect.
From what you say, I don't think that would happen. Didn't seem like it, because the way you speak about the team and there's the kind of thought pattern, the psychology of it is that you guys believe in yourself. To see the guys that you mentioned in SCOPS, like Chris, Brad Rattu, Jacob, it just, when you see the cars on track and the results, it looks like they belong there, which is more difficult to kind of accomplish as a team, to get your people to believe in themselves. It's a lot harder than you'd think. That they really do look like they belong and they believe in themselves.
Well, the half of the team that are below 35 in average age haven't seen Days of Thunder, so all my wasted humour on them just goes to nothing. Where the rookie comes in and starts yanking the rookie's chain, and that was what it was like a bit at SCOPS when we started there. You know, we'd be up with, you know, you'd find yourself at the front, maybe out of sync strategy or something, and then you would really just get monstered. I remember when Chris got in there, just even SCOPS second split, he's like, wow, these guys play for keeps. There's no warming up, there's no easing into it. It's just bang from the get-go. And it took a bit of adjusting to be up there, because, you know, we those guys weren't used to seeing our cars up there. I
don't think you've got anything to worry about, to be honest. When it comes to as long as you've got 30 people in the team there's obviously going to be enough people active to be on track and
well, we can almost go two splits. We can almost have 2 splits in official racing of V8.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's
Have you tried
crazy.
it?
I mean, I know that with from personal experience that when someone who is of the level of Richard Hampstead does leave a team, that it can actually have the opposite effect to what you just said. Like it drives people to go just that little bit harder, to put in just those few extra laps, and it does make a big difference to your confidence when you've got 3 top split drivers or 3 potential top split drivers on a regular basis. That Tom Curran, the Stephen Vargas of the world, they're going to be, pushing for that position as well in the team.
But it's not just the results, right? So you can't just bring a guy in and guy or girl and say, right, they're going to come and win and they're going to be out of there. Because, okay, high five only lasts so long. You need that day in, day out sharing of information. Like, hey guys, I've done a set, I've tweaked blah, it feels good for me, what do you think? Chuck it on the drive, chuck it in Messenger, people have a crack. No, I don't like it, eat 3 tyres, or can you do a long run on this one, see what you think? Sharing all that information really gets the ball rolling. And I think if you don't have that, if you've got a team of individuals that don't act like a team, you're not actually going to learn anything.
So it sounds like communication is key. That's, teamwork and communication, from what you're saying, has been a really big part from you guys moving away up the ladder.
Yeah, so we use our messenger group, like I'm sure everyone does, for just sort of random banter. But if you don't have your eyeballs on it all the time, you can just one day you just go right off the page. So if anything important, don't bother putting it in there. But then we've got other places where we can communicate to one another and ways of structuring our communication so that people know where to go to get certain bits of information. It's all pretty, don't get me wrong, it's not like we're running a super, Ferrari race team here where it's everyone's, got to walk around the team shirt and there's heaps of rules and stuff. It's still the same redback it's always been. All we're doing is just communicating a bit more.
I think that is the difference though, because with that communication comes that if everyone feels that extra level within the team to push their own brand, if it were, to the front, and I feel as though the communication does help that. It has to.
Yeah, it's all that little. It's so we spent so much time. Chris Radicic was poring over VRS data, trying to unlock certain bits of the car. He was looking at the tyre temperatures and looking at the graphs and thinking, this doesn't make sense, because he's looking at from the real world, trying to adapt that to iRacing. And so we lent on some of the faster drivers to say, they're like, look, don't bother with tyre pressures that much. That's not going to give you the tense. It's in the shocks or whatever. Those sorts of things where you can really unlock the extra pace.
So where is it again? I'm just writing some stuff down. Yeah.
Seriously.
There's definitely some things in there with that setup. I don't really know much about it myself personally, but I just sort of click and cross my fingers and hope that something happens. But trying those different things is helping to unlock the sort of the secrets of the car from an iRacing perspective, not from real world.
So does Chris drive the iRacing V8 as well?
Yeah, Chris drives it. He's sort of, by his own admission, unfortunately his brain and feet can't really see eye to eye. Brain, feet and hands don't really do exactly what he wants it to do. But he used to be a race engineer for Super Black Racing, which his brother was involved in that. And he's, like I said, he's seen heaps of drivers come in that reckon they know what they're all about and then get spanked by their teammate. He's seen pay drivers, he's seen everything. So having that experience really helps. And he's over in America as well, so we'll actually do a setup. Say now, he'll go and look at OSR data from tonight's race, have a look at some stuff in VRS, go, all right, what setup were you running, Mark? What setup were you running, Jacob? What setup were you running, Mad Dog, Varga? What were we all doing? And then he can sort of try and join some dots. And he'll come back in the morning with, here's a set 1, here's set 2, here's set 3, and by the way, I've done a mystery set 4. It's a bit off the rails. Who knows? Some of you might like it. It's gone in a totally different direction. So then we have 4 sets to choose from.
So, Kessey, Norrie, the key is find a V8 Supercar engineer, and then we'll be right. That's what we're going to do.
Oh, no worries. I'll call Tim Edwards and see if we can... Actually, I don't know if that's a good idea at the moment.
How about we call someone at 888 or DJR where they win?
That was actually...
Ludo, give him a call.
It's a funny thing with that, right? Because Chris has been in our team for years, but we've never really asked him to do that. He just thought, everyone seems to be making such an effort. He wanted to contribute as well. The amount of times people in the team have said to me they've been in organisations with groups of people where no one has volunteered to do anything and the thing just goes to custard. So they actually put their hand up to do stuff, which is great. I've given away all our secrets, haven't I? I've given everything away.
trying to butter you up, mate. No, that is phenomenal to have. So not everyone has someone like that to help out. So, I mean, how much has Chris Radicic helped out? I mean, would you guys be, lost without him, or is this just a comfortable relationship where it's kind of tit for tat?
Well, I want to be realistic. I don't want to size too much, but we do miss him when he's not around. I think the guys really do like getting the setups and getting that encouragement to try stuff. Sort of, it takes away the fear factor from just clicking on stuff. He will say to you, clicking on this setting should do blah. If your rear's unstable, try this. What about the rear ride height? Try that. Like Monza, we want to get the car as low as we can at the back. Looking at the different setups from VRS, looking at what Madison does. And he's sort of just that experienced player that can talk to people in a calm manner, not have the whole thing seem super mind-bogglingly scary.
I suppose being a former engineer of a V8 Supercar team, you'd think he's probably dealt with all the egos out there as well. So he's probably got very good people skills by the sounds of things.
Yeah, he's definitely someone that I lean on to say, look, hey, what about such and such? What do you think about this? What should we do with them? How do we get the most out of them? He'll go, look, mate, they're super quick. You should do this, do that. Keep trying. He actually sort of will give some, people that he can give an idea of how much effort they're putting in as well. You can see in VRS how much time someone's doing in the car. He's more inclined to want to put the effort into those that want to ask for help.
How much influence does he have on the drink and drive nights that all the teams in iRacing have?
Drink and drive nights?
Sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah, no.
That's just
I forgot you guys have got a school kid in your team. We'll take that. What I mean by drink and drive is having a bottle of water,
lemonade,
as you practice on Lime Rock. Definitely not crashing into each other.
Well, my cup holder broke on my year, so that has really pulled me out of any of those type of things myself.
That's horrible.
But I know it's.
There's a hat for that. There's definitely a hat that can definitely come into use.
With some straws coming down on it.
We won't talk about the time that we ruined a Shane Van Gisbergen hosted race, and yours truly got himself a bit of a black flag. But
I remember 3 cars going wide there. That was a good session, that one.
Yeah, right. There weren't 3 cars going wide for very long.
Someone shouldn't have been on the outside.
His car went into the fence. No wonder he's not returning any of my emails. Seriously. It was all your fault.
A professional supercar racer should not have been on the inside of that move.
It's amazing how some of the guys can actually keep composure and, race as fast as they do, considering how effective their cup holders are.
Kessey, not mentioning any names. Chris.
Look, I tend to find that I'm much better on tracks with extremely long straights. Gives me a chance to stretch my legs and take a swig of water,
Spa, Bathurst,
oh my
Monza.
God, all your recent results, mate. So Daytona and Monza,
done well.
You've just absolutely flown through those.
On the lemonade.
I completely understand now.
What did you guys think of Daytona as a track? That's not somewhere we've been to before.
Fantastic.
Absolutely loved it.
Because it's sort of been a bit scary for a lot of people.
Okay. So controversy, I hated it.
Yeah, so Norrie was my co-driver for the AOSC, and it didn't click with Norrie.
I sent the car backwards faster than I sent it forwards. I didn't get any off tracks or incidents or get caught up in anything that I couldn't control. But
yeah, I know that the V8 Supercar doesn't have roof racks, but Chris definitely was carrying Norrie somehow. You know who did do well is Jacob Knight. He smashed it there, as in he went really well at Daytona.
Yeah, they should have really. To be honest, we gutted that we didn't have 2 cars on the podium at that race, and that's not something I thought I would say this time last year. But seriously,
especially since AOSC has actually gotten stronger as a field over the last
definitely
well.
having. I think when we announced that Richard was going to run it, if you look at the people that signed up, a whole bunch of other people were signing up. So even Filsell was starting to sign up to some of those races with Sam. I think at Phillip Island. So it's actually brought the whole new AOSC now isn't seen as this sort of Friday night just muck about. It's seen actually as a proper series now.
You've got a really good mix. I like it as my week-to-week race because it's got people right up the front, right in the middle, and right at the back. And I think it creates makes some really good racing.
And Nick's not afraid to try a few things as well. I mean, Daytona double file restarts. Who would have thought that would be a thing?
No, absolutely.
It would work that well.
Double file restarts. The innovations he's got with those banners on the broadcast, I think, is awesome. So Nick's really put a lot of effort in behind the scenes to make that work. actually sort of make it bigger and better. And I think there's probably some innovations that he's doing that you might see in some other broadcasts in the future.
So I know you guys are connected with the AOSC, but on the side of this being a SCOPS podcast, is SCOPS the Premier League for you guys still in making a top split appearance?
Oh, absolutely. Definitely. I couldn't agree more. And we do think of it. You mentioned it as a development series. It's that place to learn and practice. But at the end of the day, the SCOPS Sunday afternoon, that's what it's all about, putting those lap times down on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But people like Chris, that's what they aim for. That's what they put all their effort and focus into. And the same with Jacob and Brad. So that's definitely where we want to be. We want to be, in the top 10 there would be our next step. We had 3 cars in the top split, I think, round before last. I think we had 6 in the second split. And when you got 30 cars, you tend to sort of make it into things like that every now and then, which is a bit lucky. But I think, definitely want to be, your TTRs and stuff, they can't dominate forever, fingers crossed. So it might be nice to let us have a go.
Absolutely behind you on that one.
We'll ask Jared about that one later on.
Yeah. Shock news, JARRAD FILSELL to Redback Racing.
It's confirmed.
It would be nice.
This is the place where we create rumours. Flatchat podcast.
Well, if you're listening, Jared, you know my number. He was actually really good. He did a bunch of trophies for us, for our guys as well. When we signed up with LeBlanc, we made sure that they got something to take into office and remember Redback Racing. Same for Inzen as well. I don't know if you see his website, his race art thing. He did a really good job there.
Yeah, he's done some really great stuff with that. Yeah.
But yeah, man, we want to be up in SCOPS. We want to be knocking on the Synergy Sim Racing. They're sort of the next team, sort of in our gun sights, as it were. There's a nice little rivalry there between Jacob and Kyle.
Yeah.
So we like to sort of pump it up a little bit. Chatting with Hopper the other day about maybe building up that rivalry between the two teams. Also, with our 30 drivers, the GT3 guys all just decided that they like the sound of the V8 and all just piled in there. So we actually made them those guys that want to get into SCOPS, we made them another team. We made them the Invisa livery, got them in there, and they're now a bunch of guys trying to break into SCOPS as well.
Well, I think we might park it there. Mark, before you go, would you like to give a shout out to any sponsors or teammates, mate?
Mate, look, I think it goes without saying that everyone on that team that's listening to this, or if not listening to it, then they're out of the team.
Yes, that's 30
that is
views.
a great ploy.
They know who they are, and they put in pretty mega. The way those guys bond together and look after each other off the track, help each other out from, with kit that they need. If someone needs a piece of video card, someone's like, yeah, I got one, mate, I'll send it to you. It's pretty amazing. We want that to continue. And obviously the sponsors that we've got on the car that have made some stuff like the Richard thing possible. LeBlanc and Inzen. And obviously Richard and the TTL Academy, definitely their sort of a contribution in the secret sauce that's really helped Redback sort of barge its way up the queue, up the pecking order, as it were. And thanks to you guys, right, for helping us promote this and share a little bit of insights about our team and what sort of makes us tick.
No worries, Mark. It was awesome having you on. I think going forward, it goes without saying that we'd love to have a couple of drivers join us on the podcast, and yeah, we really appreciate you coming along.
Yep, no worries. I think they would fawn over themselves to come and have a chat to you guys. I'd love it.
No worries, mate. Thanks for joining us.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Right, well, there he was, the manager of Redback Racing Team. Boys, that was a lot of info, but man, some interesting stuff. I mean, Mark has a hold of the situation quite clearly. Like he is, in control of what is going on with that team, and with the help of Chris Radicic and the drivers and how well they are all working. And it's kind of like he's made it all happen. You can't help but to be impressed by how he's managing things over there at that team.
And just the way he goes about his business. I mean, he's so open and willing to share his knowledge with every other team up and down the pit lane in SCOPS, in AOSC, anywhere that Redback's doing well. So just the concept of how he goes about running that show is second to none. So well done to him.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely, if you're looking to take over a team and, or if you're looking to get in, start your own team and get cracking, I mean, he's definitely, his interview is definitely worth a really good listen. He's got such good organisation in that team, and I suppose that's why it's one of the places that people now are looking to go when they're sort of moving up into the Scops world now. And it's great to see another team, another big name get it back up there. Also definitely they're an older team. They've been around for a long time, but they've had their ups and downs, and they were sort of sitting there, sort of in the middle of the pack there. And they've changed so much in the last 6 months. It's really good to see another team up the top there.
Yeah, that's for sure. And like you said, some great insight and a really interesting interview. Like just to discover where they were and that journey to where they are now is seriously cool. And like you said, that the way that Mark goes about it is it's a really beautiful way of managing the team and ensuring that everything runs smoothly. And particularly, he talked about communication, and that is key. And it sounds like that has really worked for his team. So it's great to see. And it looks like Redback Racing Team are just on the up and up at the moment. It's really, really positive.
Just to kind of jump on that too, the positivity that comes from Mark is really apparent. And it's infectious too. I mean, I remember when we were speaking to Mark, I left the conversation thinking, wow, I mean, I feel like I could do that. Just to put it out there, I probably can't do that because Mark has a lot of experience behind him, and I think he's in a position...
Realistic goals, Tracy, realistic goals.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that Mark is putting these particular, not to get all Liam Neeson on us, but particular set of skills that he has and bringing him to a format like iRacing in the Australian V8 community. I mean, only 45 minutes or so ago, we were discussing the crazy drama that goes on in the forums, and someone like Mark, who, from what I can see, could bloody run any type of group of people, in my opinion. And his love for motorsport has brought him into iRacing and running, what's bound to be a very successful team. And good on them, and I really hope them the best in the future. And also, definitely take you up on your offer, Mark. I'd love to have a couple of the drivers. We'd all love to have a couple of your drivers on here to discuss some more stuff. And yeah, let's keep in contact, mate. And just moving on to, I guess, before we round everything off with the show, next round is the Enduros. Starts the Enduros. So, ooh. Imola.
Exciting.
Exciting stuff.
This is championship-changing stuff.
It right is. Out sideways.
Just to get one of those quotes out there.
Safeway car park stuff.
At Imola, it will be.
That chicane of death is definitely Safeway car park stuff.
Oh, man. I hope we qualify first.
Or last.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah, mate.
You're not going to qualify first.
Yeah, I know. There's double the amount of drivers to beat, and it's going to be a bit of a challenge to try and make that one. However, we'll see how many 1,000 laps I can do in the next, few days before that gets cracking.
Hey, mate, if it makes you feel any better about trying to qualify first and doing the 1,000 laps, I know you were out at your sing-along, but Phil Sell wanted to let us know that in Scops pre-qual, he rolls around on full fuel, kind of just learns the track. I know he ends up on first, second, third position in pre-qual, but just thought I'd let you know, mate. How do you feel about that?
Oh, mate, it's heartbreaking stuff, to be honest. The guy's obviously, he's got it all hooked up, Jared, and that's why it was so good to have him on the show. But, for the 30-odd drivers that will make it that aren't necessarily aliens, but actually in this one it might be 20, we will have to put in as many laps as we possibly can. I say we. It's a pretty cocky thing to say from someone who's made one top split of Scops before. But look, I think that this is going to be a big one. I think that I've got a dark horse selection on who I think might win. If that's cool, Dane Warren, Thomas McMillan. They are rocket ships at that track. Brock, I hope you like that one, but they are rocket ships at Inline.
No, I think that's pretty fair. Dane in particular has this really weird relationship with Imola where he just flies in the V8 there. Like us at ASM, we don't understand it. We try to find out from him, and he's just like, I don't know what to tell you. So, a pair to keep an eye on there. Obviously, enduro racing is crazy. and anything can go wrong. But I think you'll see your regulars up there. But what I'm loving about Scops at the moment is the fact that there's so many different teams up the top. Like, you're regularly seeing TTR, TTL, ASM, Redback Racing Team, SSR.
ERT. They're another
ERT,
big
exactly,
name in that enduro.
Six teams battling it out up the top. Like, that's massive, and that's great competition to see. So I don't think a dark horse selection, definitely Dane and Thomas, but I honestly, looking at all the people we've had and the pace that so many of them have shown, I couldn't pick a winner now, and if I did, I'd probably just look silly.
Yeah, it's probably unfair for me to pick Thomas and Dane. Sorry, Nori, but it's unfair because at the last enduro they had there was AOSC. They actually ran out of fuel in the last lap, and Forzan and Rizzo got the win there. So, you got the rocket ship of Forzan Al-Nabi and the consistency of Ross Rizzo. Anything can happen in such a big race.
Well, I'll chime in on that one and say my pick for the dark horse would be the trick car. I think that car is the one that I would be keeping my eye on anyway throughout that race and throughout all the enduros for sure, because the consistency that Ross brings paired with the speed and pace of Forzan, and also, I mean, obviously Forzan has consistency too. I just think that even if they don't win, it'd be really, really interesting to see where they end up, because they're so new. It's their first driver team up together, and I reckon that they can pretty much hammer out a really good result. So, whether they don't win this year, that is a massive pairing to look out for.
I don't want to go back to music, but you took the words right out of my mouth, because that is exactly who I was going to pick. Forzan and Ross are going to be a fast combination. You've also got to keep your eyes open for Burkett and Brady, with JC's number one cafe up there in Marrickville. But they're going to be fast too. So Forzan and Ross and Burkett and Brady, definitely runs to watch.
Yeah, and guys, if you didn't listen to last week's ending of the podcast, the Burkett and Brady reference is something really, really silly. So Brady and Joe, I sincerely apologise. No offence. It's just something.
You make a great pairing.
And Jake Sperry, make sure you're listening to this because the Burkett and Brady thing might come out there as well.
There will be a quiz next time.
Yeah, and Sperry, again, if Chris ever makes it through to a position in Scops where he's on the broadcast and you have to call him out, it is, let me say this really clearly, Chris, the Queen of the Desert, Kessey. Chris, Queen of the Desert.
The Queen of the Desert.
Just had to make sure that was known. So, rounding things off, guys, I just want to say thank you to everyone listening, and we'll be back soon. We're pretty much going to be having this one out when the Enduro's pre-quals are on, so good luck, drivers, good luck, and may the best man win. Best man-woman win, sorry.
Absolutely, and can I say, straight to Brock, mate, thanks heaps for jumping in. I apologise it was such late notice, but it sounds like you did a great job. So, I'd love to do it again, mate.
Job. Yes. We're always happy to have Brock back.
In fact, Kessey, you don't need to come back next time.
Unless you're seeing the
you can stay at Jersey.
I'm looking for a new job.
Yeah, unless you see the 4 seasons. Then we might have you back.
All right, I'll have to do some rehearsals.
It's been a pleasure, guys, and I'd love to come back on. It's good fun and nice and easy going. So, it's been good.
It's been a blast. We'll catch you, Brock, on the broadcast. So, guys, everyone, make sure you watch the Geodesics and all the other stuff that V8's Online has to offer. Again, thanks, everyone, and I'm going to throw to Mr. Chris, Queen of the Desert Kessey, for our becoming famous outro here that everyone needs to adhere to. And let's let it rip, and we will see you guys next time.
That's it for this week's Flatchat podcast, V8 SCOPS edition. If you like the show, you can find all our social links in the description below. Subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook and Twitter, and share it with your friends. Remember, folks, less brake, more throttle, and above all else, don't pleb it.
interesting. And I was sort of thinking as well when Norrie was chatting and having a turn there. You're always learning something new, particularly alongside someone like Reece Gardner, who's like, I personally think I describe his voice as angelic. It's beautiful.
It is.
Oh my God.
And like commentating alongside him, just learn something every time.